Good evening, I'm meteorologist Robb Ellis. We want to keep you updated here on WTHR Plus as well as on WTHR. Some of you may be watching on some of our social platforms of this very strong line that's now passing through Indiana. Central Indiana is likely going to see a huge change over the next 6 hours, and it all starts with this line that's rolling through. Now, currently, it's a line of severe thunderstorms that really stretches all the way up to the northern state line, all the way down to Terre Haute and points to the south, where we do have tornado warnings that are ongoing into parts of Illinois. For us, we don't currently being the key word here, have any tornado warnings that are in place in our viewing area. However, what we're tracking is this line of severe storms, which have severe thunderstorm warnings the entire bulk of the line. But then there's a couple of areas where we've seen a little wiggle here and there. And every now and then within that wiggle, we can see these quick little spin ups that can trigger tornado warnings. And that's what we saw a little bit earlier into Park County. Eventually that rolled into Putnam County. Also included a warning here for the southwestern part of Montgomery County. But that's now been canceled because the rotation has really weakened. What the likely scenario is going to play out here is these spin ups are going to be very quick. They're going to be relatively weak. And then they'll begin to weaken just as quickly as they popped up. And we'll likely see these tornado warnings quick if they do spin up. But that means you need to be paying close attention to what's going to be happening. All right, if you are in Indy, this is just now starting to roll into the west side. So let's get in a little bit closer here. Severe thunderstorm warnings just on the west side of Brownsburg. I'd say you have at least another maybe 30 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes before this arrives in downtown Indy, depending on where you are. If you're on the west side, probably a little bit earlier. If you're on the east or northeast side, probably a little bit longer before that happens. Here's the line that did produce the tornado warning a bit earlier. There is a bit of lightning within that. As that approaches, this isn't going to be a scenario like when we were in kind of the warmth of the late spring and early summer, where we have a lot of lift, but we have just enough that it is triggering some of areas of some lightning. Even farther to the south, let's go through that line. Let's show you exactly where this line is moving through. I'll basically go from top to bottom, from south to north along this line and show you where it's rolling on by. Farmersburg, we'll start there. That's where there's a little bit of lightning now showing up to your west. And once this front passes, your temperatures are probably going to go from the mid-60s, which is where we're sitting right now in Indianapolis, all the way down into the 20s by just after midnight. This is going to be one heck of a drop in temperatures. Farther to the north, there is some pretty heavy rain that's moving from, say, Brazil down to, say, Farmersburg. I'll get in a little closer, see if we have any additional landmarks that are going to pop up here. Sealyville, this is just to the east of Terre Haute. Anyone traveling right now on Interstate 70, likely dealing with some pretty heavy rain. That's actually starting to pick up in intensity with a little bit more lightning showing up here over Brazil. So this may be a part of that line of the storm that is starting to show at least some intensity. May also be producing some pretty intense winds. We could see winds as high as 50 miles per hour as this line moves through. Farther to the north, there's also additional little piece of energy here rolling just to the north of Greencastle. Additional bits of lightning there. Bainbridge, thankfully, the part of the storm that was producing that little bit of rotation that we were concerned about moving right along US 40, that has weakened, but the storm itself is still going to produce heavy rain and likely some gusty winds along with a little bit of lightning here and there. North from there we go. Rochdale, you're going to see some heavy rain. It's on your doorstep at the moment. Ladoga, that's also producing some pretty heavy rain. Probably not much in the way of any hail with this. It's possible. Sometimes when we see these brighter spots on radar, it could be a little bit of hail showing up, but I really haven't heard of much in the way of any hail reports coming out of any of this. New Ross, there's the line rolling through right now, and it's just along Interstate 65, north and west of Lebanon. There's Liston right there. So some from, say, Pittsboro all the way points to the north and west. Let me actually zoom out a little bit because that's going to be Interstate 74. Here's 65. There's Lebanon. Rain coming down now for Lebanon. And what we're also watching is there's a little bit of a spin here that we're starting to pick up, and we'll have to watch that. In fact, let me zoom in real quick and get up close with where we're seeing some of the areas of rotation here. Because where we want to watch carefully, I mean, all along the line, we're concerned about that possibility. But we also don't want to see that rotation, those little wiggles, to pop up with it. Give me just one moment. I just want to adjust to our storm relative velocity and just see if we're seeing any additional rotation. I'm actually encouraged by what I'm seeing there. It doesn't look quite as bad as maybe some of the couplets we saw just a little bit earlier, but still a concern for us. So farther north from there, Frankfort, you have some of the heavy rain moving through. Farther to the north up to Flora. Carrollton, Galveston, likely getting rain, but it's going to pick up in intensity. We've actually been seeing rain for the last maybe 20 minutes or so, but the heaviest of the rain is going to continue. Now, if you're in Monticello, if you're in Lafayette, the rain has cleared. The storms have pretty much ended. And likely going to see your temperatures continue to crash. While I'm over here at the computer and off from the screen, I just want to show you some of the temperatures here briefly. Take a look. We're sitting at 64 degrees end of December in Indianapolis, and many locations are even warmer than that. We're up to almost 70 in Bedford currently, 58 for Danville, and 50 for Champaign. The colder temperatures are moving in. Now, we do have meteorologist Sean Ash standing by. Sean, I'm going to hand it over to you here in just a moment, but very briefly, while we're talking about that big drop in temperatures, take a look at this wider view. St. Louis is currently sitting at 47, but they were 77 as of 2 p.m. this afternoon. They have already dropped 30 degrees, and there's even colder air back behind that. They're probably going to drop at least another 20 degrees before they reach their low temperature for tonight. This is what's moving our way. And once the 60s go away, say goodbye, because they're not coming back until at least next year, and it doesn't look like anywhere in the 7-day forecast we're going to be dealing with them anytime soon. So keep that in mind. There's the line. Again, no tornado warnings currently that are in play. We just have severe thunderstorm warnings. Sean, is there anything that you've been able to look at recently that's kind of different from maybe what I've been seeing here just along that line? It's essentially just watch this line at this point.
Yeah, and look, you've been on it, my friend. We knew something was going to have to give, and if you guys can throw me up on links 2, weather graphics 2, I'll voice over that. Bottom line, we talked about something had to give. We had a dew point today that was as high as it's ever been this late in the season. And you mentioned the record-breaking temperatures. So what we do, let's just show what we typically show, which is this is what we call radar reflectivity. It tells us how hard it's raining in relation to the radar. You can see the entire line has been issued for a severe thunderstorm warning, but also with the tag of tornado possible. And the reason the Weather Service is wisely doing that, and we would all love to tell you exactly where these brief areas of rotation will occur. The best that we can do on live Doppler 13 radar is what we're doing right now. We're showing you what's called the storm relative velocity, and we look very closely for red and green next to each other. Now, I'm going to take the radar back in time to show you why that tornado warning was issued earlier. And so there you have it. And this is when it was near Rockville. We'll go back a little bit farther in time, okay? And then we'll play forward. That's what caused the initial tornado warnings, all right? The rotation quickly weakened. And that's what will be the frustrating thing about a lot of this is that, you know, they may have to issue a tornado warning. We don't have any right now in our viewing area, but they may have to issue some, and then possibly 5 or 10 minutes later have to go ahead and discontinue it due to the rotation. The rotation along this line is going to be very brief in nature. The wind, however, everywhere along the line is going to get some sort of wind. Whether or not it's severe, to be determined. Although, as we get in close to Advance and east of New Ross, so this is crossing over 74 toward Liston, you see that darker shade of red there. That's indicative of where we could get some stronger wind gust. And that's what the radar's indicating to us as well. Those brighter shades on the radar. Now let's see what that's giving us. So that's about 50 miles per hour. Now the radar beam at that particular location is roughly about 1,500 feet off the ground. So we're not getting a sampling closer to the ground. But that's why we've got the long line of severe thunderstorm warnings that goes all the way up beyond Kokomo. So this goes beyond Peru. Gets into far northern Indiana. From a timeline perspective, Rob, everything is playing out. We were thinking between 7:30 and 8:30 for the metro area. That still looks to be accurate. My recommendation is if you're out right now, maybe you're at dinner or you're thinking about heading out, just let this thing blow through, and it's going to blow through very quickly.
It will. Yeah. I mean, I kind of said this yesterday, Sean, that this is going to scream across the state because it's moving so quickly. Earlier, Colin was showing some of, he's our director into the booth here. He was showing,
you got a speed on these tonight, by the way?
They've been moving east. They've been variable. I think it's about 50, but I'd have to look.
We'll do, so here's some ETAs on that particular speed. So 720 Speedway gets into Carmel roughly the same time. IMS the same time. Danville about 704. That's the leading edge of this line.
Recalculate that because they're moving east at about 70
Okay, well, there you have it. 70 miles an hour.
And I think they've been, some of the parts of the line have been accelerating where we've been seeing some of the strongest returns.
Let's do that at 70. Ballparkish there. So there's some adjusted times. Shaves off about 10 minutes essentially. So about quarter after in Speedway, Mooresville, and Carmel, and IMS. Before 7 in Lebanon. You're already getting some heavy rain right now. Linton at 705. So look, just get indoors. I would recommend if you're in an area that has a bunch of older trees, just get indoors, let this thing pass by. And yes, it will go very quickly. And by 10 o'clock, this thing is going to be a Kentucky and Ohio problem.
And you're looking at some of the live pictures here. One of the things you notice here as the car's headlights come into frame is that there's sheets of rain that are falling, and you don't want to be out driving in that at the very least, not to mention the gusty winds that go along with this and some potential. And you can see the camera shaking a good bit, and we're probably catching this right at I-74 at mile marker 52. Right as that line is pushing through. In fact, Colin, stay on that for just a moment because you can really get a sense of the winds gusting as the line comes through. I was watching this just a moment ago and it wasn't really quite as impressive as what you're seeing right there. Keep in mind, those vehicles, Advance, this is just south of Advance, you said? Okay. And again, there's a little bit of lightning, but not necessarily a lot. Most of what we're seeing there is the car lights shining into the camera. You see people having their emergency flashers on. And it does look like the bulk of the storm is rolling through there right at the moment. Let's go back over to Lynx 1 at the chroma key with me, and I just want to show you a couple of things here. As the line has looked pretty uniform south of Terre Haute all the way to, say, maybe just to the west of Indy. And then from there, it really doesn't look as impressive, although that disjointed nature has us a little bit concerned that we could see some additional spin-ups start up. Now, it's not looking as impressive here when it comes to those couplets that we saw earlier that Sean was alluding to. But having said that, I've been watching some of the gusts that have been coming in, some of the numbers, some of the values, and I haven't so far seen any values ahead of the line or with the line that have been anything that's been impressive. They've been a few that have been as high as 40 miles per hour, but behind this, the winds are really going to pick up. I actually think your winds are going to be stronger behind the line than with the line ahead of the line. Maybe with the line, they may pick up quite a bit, as we saw with that video a little bit earlier. The area that we were tracking there, we are looking at, let me get in a little bit closer because we're probably looking at it right there. That's where that camera, that traffic camera was located, right about here. You can see that that's where the line was coming through. I want to correct something, Sean, I said earlier because I said I didn't see any reports of hail. One of the things that the National Weather Service did mention with any of these severe thunderstorm warnings is that they do think that hail could be a concern here with any of the storms. So some of the brighter returns that I'm looking at may be some hail that's popping up at times, but that's not really our huge concern for tonight. It's going to be this. It's going to be gusty winds. And you can again see this, I believe this is Interstate 70 near Cloverdale that you're looking at. It's going to be gusty winds. There's also that same shot we saw earlier where the visibility is really dropping. And this is really what you want to avoid. You don't want to be out in this as the peak of that line comes through because it's going to be impossible to see. The winds are going to pick up. You're going to have flooded roadways. There you see some lightning strikes as well. That's going to be a concern, and it looks like one of the semi-tractor trailer drivers has pulled over to the exit ramp to allow this storm to pass through, and probably as he should, you know, with that strong wind coming through, can be more difficult, more folks going by with their emergency flashers on. Probably going to be something we'll see all along this line as it approaches Indianapolis, and it is getting a little bit closer. So Brownsburg starting to see the rain arrive. This is the area where we're watching this part of Interstate 74, and then we were looking at this part of Interstate 70 closer to Cloverdale where that line is going to roll through, and we'll probably come back to that camera There's also a little bit of heavier returns here, which may imply both heavier rain, but maybe even a little bit of small hail. But where that rain is coming down more heavily, what it's doing is it's allowing that rain to help transport some of the strong winds closer to the surface. So there may be a direct correlation between how strong the winds are when the line comes through and how strong these returns are. So that area that we were tracking right there, that's where we were seeing some of the heaviest rain moving through. Real briefly, let me just go back to radar with storm relative velocity just to show you if we're seeing any areas that are of concern. Now I know sometimes we talk about, oh, the greens and the reds close together, that's what we look for. And you may go, okay, well, hang on a second, those are pretty close there, but they're not in the right orientation. What we want is them at a certain orientation to the radar, and I'm not really seeing that. One thing that has me a little concerned here is there is a little squiggle. In fact, you do see that was a little bit of a spin up right there, a little bit of a tightening of some rotation right about there. One of these kind of bookend vortices that may have been popping up just to the north and west of Lebanon. Going to have to watch that very carefully to see if we get any more of these types of spin-ups. Outside of that, farther to the north we go, there's a little bit of some minor rotation there, but it may just be the way the radar is cross-sectioning that line of storms. Additional lightning ongoing. We've been seeing it into the traffic cameras. And then farther to the north we go, Galveston. I'm not seeing anything here closer to, say, Logansport, although things are starting to clear out there. Let me go back to the conventional radar just to show you kind of the heavier returns. It's a much more muddled look to the radar here. In fact, a lot of the rain is out ahead of the heaviest of the storms, which are farther back where we're seeing some of the lightning. I'll remove that banner just to get it off of the screen for you. Once you get south of, say, Frankfurt, this becomes much more of a well-defined line. I think once you get north of Lebanon, the line isn't looking as impressive, but there's still a couple of areas here north of Lebanon, very close to Lebanon, that we'll have to watch. This is where I saw that little spin up, and you can kind of see it in the radar, but not as clearly as you could in the other type of radar that I was using, the relative velocity. Farther to the south, this is that area near Cloverdale. Hey, Colin, can you pop up that camera if it's still, if Rob hasn't changed it yet, if it's on Interstate 70 near Cloverdale, because I'm curious as we're going to see, starting to see the winds pick up there. And here's the other thing, and we'll leave that up for just a moment, I want to mention. Look, this rain that's coming through, it is going to produce some pretty heavy rain. Those winds, once they change direction, they're going to drop the temperature incredibly quickly. We're talking about from the 60s down into the 20s over the course of maybe 4 or 5 hours or so. Any of that moisture that hasn't dried up, that still remains on the bridges, the overpasses, the roadways, that could flash freeze as the temperatures drop into the 20s, maybe even the teens during the overnight hours. That could be a concern for your Monday morning commute. Could have some icy conditions. I know it seems strange we're talking about tornado warnings and severe thunderstorms moving through. But when you're talking about the possibility of temperatures dropping that quickly, flash freezing is going to be a concern as well. And those types of bridges and overpasses are certainly going to be a concern here. Not as raining as heavily here, so I don't think the front has moved through, but what you can tell from that Cloverdale camera is that it is shaking quite a bit, so the winds are picking up ahead of the line moving through. And I have a feeling as that line gets even closer, we'll see this camera change dramatically over the next few minutes or so as that line of storms is just about to pass through there. It looks like this is going to be within minutes of seeing that line move through. And you can also make out some of the lightning. That's the other thing, Sean, I've been a little surprised at is how much lightning we've seen with this. I wasn't expecting to see a good bit of lightning with this line as it moved through, but there's been quite a number of strikes.
Well, for December 28th, I didn't expect the dew point to be in the 60s either, Rob. But yeah, to your point, yes. I mean, this is not your normal setup that we're dealing with here in late December. I did check on power outages, 100 in Marion County right now, roughly ballpark 300 in the state. That is going to be a very fluid number. We'll see, as this moves across the metro between now and 8:30 p.m., whether or not we get some additional pockets of wind damage here. But yes, we're going to be watching the radar like a hawk here. Again, I'll show you the power outage map that we have, 100 in Tippecanoe County, 100 in Marion, and roughly 100 there in Vigo County, which is in far western Indiana, obviously, where Terre Haute is. So let's do a little bit of radar analysis. Look, this line is quick hitting. We all get a burst of rain. It's going to be wind whipped around the area. And within it, some pockets of wind damage potential and areas of rotation that may require some new tornado warnings, though we don't have any right now. We just have a long line of severe thunderstorm warnings. So it's now getting into the western side of the metro area. So on you right now in Brownsburg, coming up in Avon here within the next 10 minutes, as well as Plainfield, and should get into downtown, I would suspect, before 7:30. And then it's east of the metro area, probably by 8:30, and then out of the state by the time we get into 10 o'clock. So we'll go over to storm relative velocity right now. So we look for areas of potential rotation. We have to make sure, as Rob mentioned, it has to be in the right position. We want it to be on the leading edge, not on the backside of the storm line. So right now, I'm not seeing anything that's screaming toward me. That's, I guess you could say, good and bad. Look, the tornado, the risk of a tornado is going to be significantly lower than a risk of pockets of wind damage along this. We just want you to be aware of that.
Okay.
And look, if it's doing damage, I've always said I don't care if it's a tornado or it's a severe thunderstorm. If it's going to be damaging some property, knocking down some power lines, you need to treat it just as such here. But let's go to our wind shear rate, and this does a good job of kind of cleaning up all of that wind velocity. It shows the front, and it shows, hey, this is where wind turbulence is getting peaked out right now across, going across in 65, crossing 74 there near Liston, getting a little bit closer. So Shepherd and Fayette, heading toward Whitestown, Royalton, Eaglewood Estates. If it holds, this part of the line could produce some wind damage. Now, severe thunderstorm warning will continue until 7:15. We will wait and see. I suspect we will see an eastward expansion of this. And speaking of Cloverdale, let's show you what that looks like here. Well, let's see if I can call up there. Yeah, so here's the Cloverdale camera, and you can see that thing just getting rocked around. So sheets of rain, albeit it may be brief. It may be over your area, maybe 20 minutes or so, Rob, and then boom. And then you're going to get smacked in the face with the cold that comes in a few hours later.
Well, and those folks that are driving, every time we go to one of these cameras and we get out ahead of the storm so we can see where these cameras are going to become much more active. And look at the wind gusts, by the way.
Yep.
You don't want to be out driving on this, especially if you're in one of those semis and those winds are going to really whip around. This is what you're going to have to deal with here in Indy in the next, I'd say, 20 to 45 minutes or so, depending on which side of town that you're on. Let me reset. I want to show you a couple of things here because we've been talking about wind gusts. Now that we have this line kind of moving across the area, I have been watching some of the wind gust numbers, some of the actual sensors that have been showing up. By the way, that area that we were showing you was right about there. That was the camera. And again, Colin, pop that up at some point if you feel like it looks pretty impressive and we're starting to see those really strong gusts. Everyone is under a tornado watch. Everyone is likely going to go under a severe thunderstorm warning as this moves by. Notice the sheets of rain as we go to these cameras. That camera is Interstate 65. If you travel Interstate 65 up to Lebanon, you know exactly where that bridge overpass is located. Not raining as heavily there, but that part of the line isn't as well defined as the area farther to the south. And I also think that that area south of Lebanon is where we're going to see the winds probably a little bit stronger. North from there, we have some concerns for some rotation, but south from there, it's that area of gusty winds. Everyone's under the tornado watch until 9 p.m. Look at the temperatures continuing to drop. Champaign, not even an hour ago, was 50. They've dropped another 5 degrees, and we're starting to see the temperature drop happen. There is a wind shift ahead of this front. The winds are all out of the south and southwest. That front comes through, that line of storms that we're talking about, produces some gusty winds, and then the winds shift immediately out of the west and northwest. And that shift is going to stay with us tonight, tomorrow night, and even into Tuesday. And it's just going to bring a surge of very, very cold air in place. Here are the current wind gusts. Currently gusting to 41 at the airport. That is so far the highest number that I've seen, at least in Indianapolis. There were a couple of other locations I saw earlier that were at 40 miles per hour. There's a 44 miles per hour gust here in Champaign, but that's behind the front. That's where that colder air is trying to filter into. This is what's pushing this warmer air out of here, and that's where I think the winds are going to be pretty strong. You're going to see numbers a lot like this tonight, tomorrow, and into tomorrow night. It's going to be gusting 40 to maybe 45, 48 miles per hour all the way through the day tomorrow, but the temperatures are going to be in the 20s. Talking wind chills are going to be down into maybe the single digits or even single digits below zero. 65 in Indy, that's the actual current air temperature. It's 39 in St. Louis. They were 77 at 2 o'clock this afternoon. It's just 5 hours later, and they've dropped almost 40 degrees in their temperature. Des Moines is at 14, 20 for Kansas City. This is the big change. This is why we're seeing those strong thunderstorms that are moving through. Let me just switch over to my analysis just to get back to hand tracking here, just so I can show you what we're watching. And we'll get back to tracking the storms that are rolling through. Here's the line. If you're in the west side of Indy, you're starting to see this move through, and now the north side of Indy has a severe thunderstorm warning that's going to be in place. I'm not going to give you the specifics for the severe thunderstorm warnings because, one, everyone's going to go under a severe thunderstorm warning, and at this point, if the line is approaching you, you're going to see likely heavy rain, some gusty winds as it moves through. And what's interesting about this part of the line, and we may start moving some of the cameras along Interstate 70 farther up 70 closer to the airport, let's say, because that part of the line looks pretty impressive. Sean, I don't know if you've been looking at that or noticing anything showing up in any of the velocities, but it is starting to bow out just a little bit as it approaches. I'm hoping that that's not going to be indicative of what we're seeing with any of the gusty winds that are going to be approaching, especially the south side of the city. I don't know if you've noticed anything along that line.
Stand by.
You're also looking again at that Cloverdale exit here on our NDOT camera. Not looking as breezy as it was before, or even rain coming down. And again, Sean, I'm just looking at the roadway and how much moisture, how much rain is falling, and that concern about those temperatures dropping into the 20s once we get into the overnight. If there's any of this left out there, maybe not on the ground because the ground temperatures are probably pretty warm, but maybe some of the bridges and overpasses.
Yeah, I think that's almost a given tomorrow morning. Keep in mind they're not going to be able to treat the roadways because of the heavy rain. I was doing a little bit of analysis using a little bit of a different radar perspective from the airport, not the National Weather Service, but from the airport to get a little closer inspection near Coatesville. Some of these pixels that we're picking up on right now. The strongest I can find there's 55. So then that's near Coatesville, and so that's near where we were showing that camera there, Rob. That's at a height, by the way, of about 450 feet off the ground. So a little bit closer to the ground, which makes sense. The line itself is getting closer to the radar locations over there. So an area that we will definitely monitor, and you can see this massive expansion of the severe thunderstorm warning, which now includes Alexandria, all of Hamilton County, and as you mentioned, essentially the entire state will be under a severe thunderstorm warning at some point. They're just going to warn this entire line until it can get east of your particular location.
I'm encouraged that I'm not seeing additional spin-ups. You know, when this was over into Illinois, we saw a lot more of these little wiggles in the line, and we were a little more concerned about seeing many more of these areas of rotation. We really haven't seen that over the last, I'd say maybe 45 minutes or so. Although farther to the south, there is still part of the line that still has some rotation with a couple of tornado warnings here, maybe closer to, say, Evansville. We'll watch that part as it rolls in a little closer to, say, Bloomington and Bedford, because that is the part of the storm, the line that is going to be impacting those counties. But I'm encouraged that at least this is a little bit more linear. We knew everyone was likely going to get in on the severe thunderstorm warnings, but I'm encouraged by that, Sean, that we don't have a lot of areas of these quick little spin-ups. I think the atmosphere is just marginally, 65 is warm for December, but for severe weather, it's not the warmest that we would expect to see for severe storms. Typically we talk about 70s and 80s or even warmer than that with that peak heating of the day. Starting to also see some of these severe thunderstorm warnings trimmed back as that line of storms rolls through. Once that moves on by, you're done with the severe thunderstorm threat. Now, your winds are, go ahead, Sean.
Marion County, so in the metro area,
okay.
Until 8 o'clock, just issued.
Yep, and here's what Sean's talking about. This is the new severe thunderstorm warning that's now been issued. It essentially includes everyone in the metro, maybe the exception of the far east or southeast side, but we knew this was coming because this line is not breaking up. It's going to continue rolling on through. I suspect that that severe thunderstorm line will continue until it exits the state sometime around maybe 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. And we said it'd be here in Indy around 7:30, and I think it's pretty much on schedule. Still watching a couple of little squiggles here and there. In fact, I want to zoom in a little bit closer to this one little squiggle that's just to the east of Lebanon now. There was some minor rotation there earlier, and I'm starting to pick up a little bit more just in the radar. But let me see if the velocity, yeah, there is a little bit of a notch there, Sean. And again, tell me if you see anything else that pops up. But just to the east of Whitestown, there's a little notch. It doesn't look very impressive, but just enough that it caught my eye, Sean. Anything that you want to add on that?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And look, I mean, that's why I was saying it's kind of frustrating, because this is much different than, say, a supercell that has a hook on it. Okay, that's, you have to, that's what they're doing at the Weather Service office. You have to be monitoring up and down this entire line like Robb's doing, and you got to look for the potential zones that may do what we call tighten up. And what we mean by that, it's the old figure skating, as those arms come in, it spins a little quicker. It's something similar, and that's what Robb's pointing out there. Near Whitestown, so this will cross over 421, in between Northfield and Eagle Village, because these are moving due east, and timing at about 55. That's the latest speed. So this is the area that we're talking about. Even if you don't get a tightening of this that produces a tornado, it can also be an area that you watch for potential stronger wind, and there you go. So that's what we're looking at. That's something we call the shear rate. So this shows us areas that may have a higher probability of producing severe wind gust. And so heads up there, if this thing holds together, Westfield and Carmel, it'll be there. Well, let's just go ahead and time this thing out for you. Moving east, hang tight here.
I'll get you a motion on that as well, just to see if there's any
I believe it's 55. If I saw the, so Carmel at 7:30, that particular part of the storm. So it looks like they may have slowed down just a little bit. You'll have rain before then. If you live around the Ruoff Music Center, that gets you at around 7:40. Fisher's 7:35. These are approximate times. Very quick moving for sure. Let me, I can see one of our cameras in the distance here. Let me pop this up. So this is I-65 near old State Road 334. And this is what, when you're within the line, by the way, this is what you're going to experience. And you can see everyone slowing down. Thankfully, this won't last for an hour. It's going to probably last maybe 20 minutes. These are quick movers. So the risk of any flooding is being minimized by that speed.
Look at the camera shaking there, Sean.
Yeah, rocking big time. Let's, so this is N.2.
That is right at, this is exit 130 on Interstate 65. This is right past the pilot.
Yeah, and I don't want to get on the soapbox, but I'm going to get on the soapbox. What you don't want to do is what they're doing, and that's getting underneath those overpasses. It's very dangerous for a multitude of reasons, especially people that are driving maybe 60 miles per hour. So hopefully that was just something temporary. It looks like they are moving on now. But hydroplaning, you start to think about those things as well, Rob.
Yeah.
Along this line here.
Let me mention a couple of things that I was looking at, Sean, while you were talking. You were also investigating that area, Whitestown and Zionsville. It doesn't look as impressive as maybe it did about maybe 5 minutes or so ago. This is the area that we're tracking just to the north of Zionsville, so maybe right along Michigan Road here. There's a couple of lightning strikes. Nothing tornado warned. We do still have the severe thunderstorm warning that's in place for gusty winds. But then I also want to go north of the line. I did see what looked like maybe another little area of concern here. This would be near Sharpsville, maybe northwest of Tipton. There's another area of the line that's very broad, but we're also a little bit farther away. Now, we are looking right into the line, which sometimes doesn't give the radar the best view. But that's another area that we'll have to keep watching, and really all along the line. Once you get to, say, west of Indy, you're essentially looking at the line of storms coming head on, so you do get a little bit of a better view of it. There's one little area that we were tracking there, maybe southwest of Plainfield. This doesn't have me too concerned. Let me switch back to the regular radar just so you can see that typical view that we're used to, just the standard what we call reflectivity. That's the product that most of you are familiar with. It tells you basically how hard it's raining or if there's any hail here, maybe some small hail within this line. But one thing that I'm noticing, Sean, is that there does seem to be a little bit of an S kind of forming here. And so there may be a couple of areas where we start to get some rotation popping up as this moves into the metro. I would like it to just stay nice and linear because that just means it's going to move through. But where I start to see the bottom half, the southern half of this line accelerate just a little bit, and that means that the northern half stays a little bit slower. And so you start to get this bit of an S shape. And where you have those little bends, you can get a bit of rotation, especially if there's a good bit of lightning around there where there's some lift. These could be problem areas that we'll have to track. Again, Sean and I are just tracking severe thunderstorms at the moment. No tornado warnings currently, although a lot of these severe thunderstorm warnings have had the wording that tornadoes could be possible because it's just quick little spin-ups within this line. But that's why we're here on our WTHR Plus streaming to make sure that you're aware. There's that cell that we were talking about that moved east of Lebanon, now moved right through, say, north of Zionsville. Downtown Plainfield is what we're looking at here from our NDOT traffic camera. Overall, actually, that's downtown Plainfield. Relatively quiet there at the moment, but we do expect that to change. It is starting to get a bit breezier.
Yeah, in probably 5 minutes, that thing's going to look completely different.
We'll definitely be coming back to that. I'm sure we will see that evolve over the next 5 minutes or so as the storm gets a little closer. Look at the camera shaking. It's always amazing to me how calm and everything looks until those gusty winds pick up before the rain gets there and we see the camera shake to give you a good idea that the line of storms is moving through. In fact, that area that we're looking at right there, US 40 at Center Street, Colin, if you want to bring me up, I want to show you that area because that's one of the areas where, and you can come back to it or you can double box me however you want to do it. I don't know what you have programmed back there, but this is what we're looking at. This is that area that we're watching right about here. And look at the intensity of this part of the storm that's about to approach those traffic cameras that we were looking at. I mean, this is going to be a wall of rain and some gusty winds as that passes, and there's gusty winds out ahead of it, but this is where the winds will very quickly change. They will very quickly shift, and that shift is often what we watch. Again, this is one of the things I'll watch very carefully is to see if we get any of these quick little spin-ups, but at the moment, it's just watching a line of storms roll on through. Colin, if you're able to pop that back up, feel free to do so. I know you're probably working on it back up there. Oh, let me switch that back. I don't want to rotate it. Oh, look at that. US 421. This is Michigan Road, I believe. 116th at Michigan Road. This is just past the target that would be, I believe, on the right. Yes, because we are looking northeast here. This is past the target on that right side with the Chick-fil-A. I may know this area a little bit. Chick-fil-A, I may have frequented a few times. You can tell we have some gusty winds. It looks like we may have also gotten a little bit of a power bump there as those winds have come through. This is due east, yes, due east of Zionsville where we were talking about that one little area that we were tracking there. And notice, by the way, the sheets of rain. You can really see the wind in the sheets of rain in the headlights of these cars and the power line shaking. That's something you don't want to be out and about. You really let this move through if you have to do any bit of traveling this evening. And I give this another maybe 5 minutes or so in this area, and we'll probably be looking at a quiet camera. Meanwhile, the rest of Indy has to deal with this line of storms and some lightning. I still, as I told Sean earlier, I'm still surprised by how much lightning we're seeing with this line of storms as it pushes through. I didn't expect to see that at late December. December 28th, is that the current date?
28th, brother.
28th, thank you. This late in the season. And Sean, tell me the statistic that you heard earlier, and I saw it pass by, but I want to make sure that I get it correct. The dew point that we had earlier in the day today, I believe was 61 degrees.
That was our peak dew point. Now, dew point records are a little bit different. The farthest we go back for Indianapolis, at least that I could find, 1948. We have, since 1948, we've only had 2 days after Christmas with a dew point of 60 plus.
And that's the humidity for folks that don't know.
Yes, the higher that number is, and that also helps fuel. You know, you can have severe weather without 60-degree dew points, but when you stepped outside today, you were like, wow, this feels like a spring day. That's why. 1984 was the other, but that was 60. We hit 61 today, and the record high today was broken. And in fact, I believe, if I remember correct, if I saw the Weather Service correctly, it's the highest since 1875, this after Christmas.
Wow.
Very few days this warm and this humid, by the way. So you're looking at live Doppler 13 radar as this line of storms is arriving on schedule in the metro area. Let me switch our camera. So yeah, look at this. There you go. So that's Plainfield. And is that right?
Nope, that's still just east of Zionsville.
I apologize. This is east of Zionsville now, 421 116th, and you can see those sheets of rain. So this is approaching the radar site in the airport. So if you've got some friends that are either flying in or flying out, I assume they're going to hold everybody and then let this line get through, and then they'll resume normal stuff tonight. So there's Zionsville. This is live radar, and I would tell you right now, so if you live in Advance, if you live in Coatesville, if you live in Lebanon, if you live in Kirkland, the threat of severe weather is over. That does not mean the threat of wind, non-thunderstorm wind, is over. We're still going to have strong gusts that will continue all night long into tomorrow, by the way.
That's Plainfield, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so there's Plainfield. And you can, again, this is indicative of what you're going to experience within the core of the line. It will be brief in nature. I continue to look up and down the line for areas of rotation, and nothing, at least now, we're probably going to get some what we call kind of contaminated images from the radar, because the line is over top of it now, or at least approaching it. So we're probably going to lose some of the resolution with it for just a bit until we can get this thing through. The tornado watch goes technically until 9 p.m. The severe thunderstorm warning that's currently in effect for Marion County goes until 8 p.m. The roughest now within Marion County is over Eagle Creek. Showing you our rotation detector there. It'll be over Carmel here momentarily, and it will be into downtown Indianapolis here before the top of the hour. I just checked, Rob, statewide numbers in terms of power outages. Latest is just over 2,000.
And Colin may have that up if he has that computer handy, if he's able to punch it. I know I'm asking him a lot on the fly here. If he's able to punch up the power numbers, especially since Sean has been talking about that, feel free to have that at the ready if it's still available for us, because we'd love to hit that number. There you see a couple of pockets here that we're tracking, that we're looking at. Looks like we're looking in the west side of the state. Yeah, that's just north of Terre Haute. There's a couple of areas.
I had Angie, she's a long-time storm tracker for us on Twitter. She lives in Jamestown, and she said even after the rain, it's still kind of muggy. She said it was one of the more chaotic, weird rain that she's had, probably because we're in late December and dealing with this. She mentioned that it's muggy. That is going to be a thing of the past here very soon. I was looking, dew points in Champaign are down to 43.
Yeah, and they've already dropped. I think they're down. I think that may be close to their temperature too. Their temperature may be into the 40s. Hey, Colin, continue to pop up any of those traffic cameras that look interesting. Again, the radar is going to be a bit muddled here within the next, I'd say 10 minutes or so. So using these cameras is really going to help. Look at that Plainfield camera shaking. Boy. Heavy rain coming down there, and the winds rocking the camera here in downtown Plainfield. Likely seeing some, I'd say 40-mile-per-hour gusts, if not 50-mile-per-hour gusts coming through. Now, the other thing while we talk about these cameras and we talk about the rain that's falling is that if we can dry up most of that rain, it'd be good news. But anything that's left over, those strong winds that you're looking at, that's a wind shift that's going to eventually bring these winds to the north and west. And Sean said it, the winds aren't done. The winds are going to continue through the entire day tomorrow. They may not be as initially strong as this burst that comes through with the line of storms, but you're going to have to deal with gusty winds through Monday and into early Tuesday morning. The difference is going to be, it's not going to be in the 60s. It's going to be in the 20s. There you see a live picture looking south at downtown Indianapolis as the line still has yet to roll through. Very quickly, let me come back to the key and talk about where we go from here, and then we'll toss it back to Sean. But I just want to mention that while we have this line of storms, it's now moving through Indianapolis, likely going to continue producing gusty winds. This is the line that we know we've been advertising. We said that this was going to continue to be the case. We're also going to keep our eye on a couple of little squiggles that have started to pop up here and there along the line. No tornado warnings currently in place, but as Sean has also been mentioning, we do have the tornado watch that's going to be in place for everyone until 9 p.m., although this will start to be trimmed back, and already we've seen some counties removed from the tornado watch. Don't have this farther to the east, say to Richmond, because a different Weather Service office has yet to issue in fact, as I speak, there are the new tornado watches removed from those counties to the west, basically where the line has passed through from Boone County and points to the west, because the National Weather Service is going to continue trimming that back. We'll see more of this and more of this trimmed back. It's going to go until 9 p.m. I think that's probably a good bit of timing, but I think by that point, it may be through the state, or at least far enough to the east, that is done. Look at this map. I mean, this is really, first of all, that 66 at 7:31 p.m., and we are live here, is already a record. It's not quite as warm as the record high we got to today, which was 67, but the old record was 65. So that at this hour, 66 is record warmth. And that's what you're dealing with. And that's what these storms are fueled off of, this warm heat and humidity that's been in place for late December. Certainly warm temperatures. This is 465 at Ditch Road. This is just to the east of that Michigan Road exit. This is often a area that we look for in our traffic cameras because it's got this great, nice, long view down the full 3 lanes of each side of 465 and that straightaway just east of Michigan Road. But look at all of the traffic that's got their flashers on because of the heavy rain that's moving through. Also another shot here at Interstate 74, mile marker 68. This would be in the western part of the state, I believe. This is at Hunter Road. We are looking at still some rain coming down. And again, what I'm going to be watching, even after the line moves through, is how much of that rain is still there once the line passes and the temperatures get down below freezing. I know it seems like we're a long way from freezing, but I have a feeling these 60s will probably last until about maybe 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock if we're lucky, and then it's all downhill from there. I think after midnight, we're probably going to be below freezing. So within maybe 4 hours or so, we'll go from the 60s down to below freezing. There's Champaign at 45, and it may be that they haven't gotten the next update. Their last update may have been at 6:55, 7 o'clock, top of the hour basically, and they may not get another update there until 7:55. So they may already be down into the 30s at this point. That's how quickly the temperatures are going to drop. And this map is just going to be much more impressive as time goes on after that line of showers goes through. Now, as far as wind gusts, there has been a new wind gust, 45 miles per hour at the airport. Still some gusts as high as 20 to 30 miles per hour. Still a 44 mile per hour wind gust over in Champaign. Ahead of the line of storms, still some gusts of 20 to 30 miles per hour. The strongest of the gusts are likely going to be within that line, and I think that's why Indy's bumped up to 45. But I think that we are likely going to see the gusts go that high tomorrow as well, except it's not going to be in 60-degree temperatures. It's going to be in 20, maybe even 18-degree temperatures by tomorrow morning. There's a live picture from close to the airport, Interstate 70 at High School Road. Sean, have you seen anything new that's been coming across as this line is now moving through probably the most populated area of the state?
Not much. Not again, and look, I'm okay if we get out of this thing with no damage. I can tell you it's moving into downtown. We're starting to hear the rumbles of thunder. This is an NDOT camera. This is 465 70 West. I have this one here, but this is just near the Indy Airport, and there's nothing shaking right now. This camera is going to be shaking here very quickly, probably within the next 5 minutes. As this line pushes through. A line that has a severe thunderstorm warning for it until another 26 minutes. These things are moving quick. The whole line has been warned. Let's show you a different camera. This is from downtown. This is our right outside of our building, looking south. So we're starting to get into the rain. We'll watch that one pretty closely here. But this is again the radar. And so,
You know, it's interesting, Sean, if you look at and I know you're there, so pull it up if you can, look at the terminal radar and look at the storm relative velocity, because right where you had that camera, it's pretty impressive what it's showing right now.
yeah, sorry about that. Hang tight. Let's go. Yeah, so.
That's exactly where you were talking about.
All right, so the camera, the one that we were showing you, is right there. So the looks like the wind burst is moving over the airport right now. The airport's right there.
Be curious to see what they're going to gust to.
So yeah, you're right.
By.
So radar in that beam height is at 275 feet. And the camera that we were showing you is right here. So it's about to get into that burst of wind, the 465-70 west camera. And it's probably less than 5 minutes now from getting into the burst.
What's interesting is I turned my head to go back and look at my computer, and that camera had completely, it looks completely different.
Yeah, so that's the 70 and High School Road there. But yeah, so the storm now is well into Marion County. I do want to, let me switch back radars here because I want to show the shear rate sometimes. And again, it's going to be a little contaminated because
we're so close to the radar.
We're so close to the radar right now. But there's going to be these pockets of, and listen, one thing we also want to point out, we're not going to have severe wind gusts along this entire line. That's not happening. There's just going to be these pockets of where we'll get wind damage and or rotation. It's still possible we could have some rotation and additional tornado warnings. We've been trying to stress that until this thing can get out of the state. Now, the odds of a tornado occurring are low. One thing we'll have to watch closely, Rob, I guess I do want to show, Rob's been talking about if it's a straight line on the radar, okay, that puts in, that lowers the probability we'll have rotation. If we start to see little areas of, and Rob, I tell you what, I was just about to talk about this, and here you go, new tornado warning. This is the area I was focusing on right here.
Okay, so we need to, is this?
That's for Greene County, but.
Do we need to step off to get on the air?
We may need to do that. We could probably do a quick hit on channel 13 and then continue our coverage. But yes, so let me show you the radar rotation with this. It's near Bloomfield. Now this tornado warning goes technically till 8 o'clock. We'll see how long the rotation lasts. But I was just beginning to pick up on this bow shape moving through Bloomfield, moving toward Bloomington. Now we will see if it holds together, okay? So let's back up the radar. You can see a little bit of rotation there near Lyons, and now moving over and across Bloomfield. And enough so to warrant the Weather Service issuing the tornado warning, okay? Rotation right now is along 231, basically over and just east of Bloomfield. If you're in Monroe County, including Bloomington, if you live along Lake Monroe, you need to monitor this, and we will continue to post updates on this, Rob, as this thing moves toward the east. Let me get a speed on this.
I think it's the most impressive. It's the most impressive I've seen so far.
Yeah, I would say so. Moving east at 60 miles per hour. So let me put let me do a track on this. Bloomfield, the rotation is, boy, it's just to your east here, but let's go ahead and do this at 60 miles per hour. And let me add some additional. Let's see if
you can hear the rain coming down now at the station, so it's now raining in downtown Indianapolis.
Yep. Hang tight here. So Clear Creek, 754, Lake Monroe, if it holds at that speed, would be there at around 8 o'clock. This is radar indicated rotation. This is not a radar confirmed tornado. There's a significant difference. It's not to say that that can't change either. At this point, it is radar indicated rotation for the central part of Greene County. Okay, I've just went ahead and tracked it out to get it into Monroe County. if it does hold. And obviously we've got what's going on downtown and across the metro, which is the severe thunderstorm warning that continues. This is the rotation. Let me just double check. I want to make sure that we don't have radar debris being picked up, and at this point we do not. Let's hope that trend holds. But a tightening along the line, and as Rob mentioned, in terms of what we call a velocity signature, it's probably, you know, the best one that we have seen tonight. And by best, we mean the tightest. But it's not to say that in 5 minutes this thing could be gone. These will be very quick areas of rotation. And now east of Bloomfield. So Ridgeport, near Tanner, near Park, that's going to be along 231. If you're in that area, go ahead and get in your tornado safe spots for this radar indicated rotation, tornado warning, okay? Go ahead and get in your safe spots until it can move to your east. If you're in Bloomington, you're Ellettsville, this particular part of the line may stay to your south. But if you're along Lake Monroe, yeah, you should be watching this. And look, the entire area, again, the entire line is under a severe thunderstorm warning regardless. It's just that we've got some pockets of rotation, Rob, that have developed along this. What's over downtown Indy right now, what's moving through Fishers, burst of rain, potential for some pockets of 60+ mile-per-hour wind gust.
So let's reset a little bit here. I don't think we're going to pop on air unless that tornado warning crosses the county line.
Copy that.
Just because of what we have on our programming.
Yep.
This is a great avenue for us to use. WTHR Plus means that we can be here on air talking about what's happening with the weather without having to cut in when it's not quite the criteria to have to cut into our on-air programming. If this tornado warning crosses over into Monroe County, we will have to do a quick little reset here, but for now we're going to hold to that, giving our football programming that's on air right now. There's the line. I started with a wide view here just to show you that this entire line is now moving through. It is essentially directly halfway across the state. Quite a bit of heavy rain now falling at the station because we are right underneath the heaviest part of that line. Probably some gusty winds happening right now. There's where the radar is located. It's that little circle that you see, and you can see some of the rains.
Pop up your tower camera there if you can.
See if I can pop it up here. If you get to it before me, perfect, Colin. Thank you. Yeah, you can't even see the skyline because of the heavy rain. And Colin, leave that up for a moment. What I noticed there as I'm watching it is you can also see the rain coming down in sheets here because of how heavily. I feel like I'm hearing hail too, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't quite heard that noise before here in this building. But it's certainly coming down heavily. Sorry, I was just listening to the building make noises here.
Well, trust me, I've heard that noise before, and it's the wind knocking that roof, partner, trust me.
I had not heard that noise before.
It's an unsettling sound.
It is a little bit.
I will agree with you, yes.
So certainly all of you are going to have to deal with those types of noises tonight as the rain comes down. That was a little unsettling. I'll be honest. I had not heard that before. Severe thunderstorms moving through downtown Indianapolis. You cannot make out the downtown skyline based on what you see here. I'm joined by Sean Ash as well as Jenny Runovich, who's sitting here in the studio. She's monitoring anything. Jenny, if you ever have anything, if you have new information, feel free to pass it along to us. We can always pop over to Jenny if she has anything.
I went by our back door at the station because I saw it was starting to pour. I thought, oh, okay, I'll get some video, and sure enough, the back door blew open to attest to the strong winds. And yes, it is pouring, but kind of taking a look at power outages, because as you guys have been mentioning, this is coming through so quickly that it can quickly cause power outages. We are seeing a few now with AES Indiana. Mostly it looks like on the west and northwest side of the city. So that's kind of in the Indianapolis area. And then when I'm taking a look at Duke Energy, which covers a little bit more of the state, they're at about 1,000 right now. And yeah, here you can kind of take a look at those. So you can see where those are concentrated. But I could tell you maybe 10 minutes ago, there was nothing in that Plainfield area. There's also a decent amount, about almost 500 down in Monroe County.
Okay.
Those just popped up when this blew through.
Well, and that may be interesting to talk about, because one of the things I want to do is I want to get back to radar very quickly, since we do still have an active tornado warning, and show you some of the areas that we're tracking. This is what's moving through the city right now. It's literally right overhead for downtown, but farther to the south along this line, gusty winds, likely some heavy rain, and then once you do reach far enough to the south, past Ellettsville, we do still have a tornado warning that's now been canceled. So that's been allowed to expire or has been canceled as that line continues pushing to the east. If that continues to hold together, or we see a little bit of a spin up again and this rolls into Monroe County, what we'll do is we'll do a quick little reset so we can update our viewers on air to that fact. You can see there was a little bit of a notch that developed here in the line. And this is one of the things that Sean and I have been talking about. When the line, when it's linear, when it's just a straight line of rain and storms and gusty winds, it typically tells us that it's going to have some strong winds, 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. But we don't have, when we have those little notches, you can get a little bit of a spin up, and that's where we start to get worried about the possibility of tornadoes popping up here, like we saw with that tornado warning farther to the south. Right now moving through Indy, and just as quickly as the rain came in here, I can tell that it is now slowing down, or at least the bulk of the rain has now passed through WTHR. Still a good bit of rain behind this, and this is what all of you are going to have to deal with. If you're on the east side, maybe east of 465, you probably aren't seeing rain just yet, unless you're maybe up into the Castleton area, Fishers, maybe over to Pendleton. But this is going to produce some gusty winds once it rolls by, as we can attest to here at the studio, because it did create a little creaking in the building and some very heavy rain once it came through. What I'm going to be watching, and I'm going to switch my computer. Colin, don't change anything just yet. I just want to change my computer to a different graphic just to show you one of the things that I want to track is, one, how quickly will the temperatures drop? Because all of the rain that's falling right now, anything that doesn't run off, that stays with us for a few hours, ponding on the roadways, puddles, that is going to be a concern, because all of this eventually will freeze as the cold temperatures move in. Tornado watch is going to continue being trimmed back. We're still seeing the tornado watch in place for several counties east of that line until 9 p.m. Behind that, the temperatures are dropping. We're now down to 59 in Indy as the line has just now pushed through. 40s are back to the west. The 60s, it's still 70 degrees in Cincinnati, if you can believe that. In late December, December 28th now, we're looking at record warm temperatures followed by severe storms, then followed by bitterly cold temperatures. Now, wind gusts, there's a gust of 52 at the airport within the last 15 minutes or so. So that is likely as that line, just as Sean said, that line was approaching right there across the airport. That's what it blew through with. So 52 mile per hour winds, probably different little pockets along that line. It's not going to be necessarily the entire line that will have winds that strong, but we are seeing a couple of these little pockets. And even behind it, Lafayette is now gusted to 43, but those winds are out of the north and west, and that's what's bringing in the colder temperatures. These aren't temperatures, these are wind gusts that you're looking at here on this particular map. Beyond that, 59 in Indy, it's 71 in Louisville right now, it's 39 in St. Louis, it's 14 in Des Moines. I can't recall a gradient this steep when it comes to temperatures that I've seen where the temperature is going to drop that quickly. We get some pretty strong fronts here, but to drop 40 degrees in 6 hours is pretty impressive here. Let me go back to the radar. And Sean, if you have anything in there that you've been looking at that's new, please feel free to take it away from me here if you've got any.
Yeah, now there's still a little kink down there. Well east of Bloomfield, well south of Bloomington. I would still, look, if you're along Lake Monroe, I would just, there's a lot of trees down there. I've got some friends that live down there. They've been hit several times over the past several years. I would just, get indoors, even away from, even with severe thunderstorm warning, until this thing can get to your east. But in terms of the tightening of the rotation, for now, that appears, Rob, like that's eased a bit.
Good news, good.
Yeah.
That's what we want to hear. We want to hear more of that.
Still going to watch it.
For sure.
Still going to watch it.
Again, just to reset things here, so we are about halfway through this event, maybe a little more than halfway through as the line continues to race across the state. We knew this was going to be the case. We knew that we would have this line of storms that would move on by. One thing I haven't done here in a bit is kind of talk about the long range picture here of when the storms move on by, how quickly will the temperatures drop, what are we expecting for the next several days, and I do want to go through that maybe once this gets a little bit further east of Indy, because right now, unfortunately, it's hitting one of the most populated areas. The line is rolling right through Indy right now, and many of you may be tuning in trying to figure out what's going on. So let me reset for you. The line of storms is crossing through the entire state. Still have tornado watches east of this line. If you are west of this line, your severe threat has diminished. It doesn't mean you don't have things to contend with overnight into tomorrow, and I'll talk a little bit about those. But the severe threat is for the most part, it's for gusty winds along the line of storms. The other minor concern, we saw it a little bit earlier, is that there have been a couple of areas where we've been watching these little notches in the line that have developed. There was a tornado warning here in Greene County earlier approaching Monroe County that Sean was talking about. There's also an additional tornado warning closer to, say, Evansville. Along this line, there can be these quick little spin-ups, and it's one of the things we have to watch until this has completely exited the state. I'd say it's probably got another hour to maybe hour and a half before it's completely out of here, which means that from about 6 o'clock when it just entered the state, probably through about maybe 9:30 when it exits the state, our temperatures will also continue to drop. We are 67 for our high temperature today. Now we're going to see the temperatures drop likely into the teens by morning. Yes, we're going to drop more than 40 degrees for our high temperature. New severe thunderstorm warnings are also posted along this line as it continues that march across the state. Getting in a little bit closer, let's talk about where the rain is coming through. If you're on the west side of Indy right now, the rain is still happening, but it's not happening with the ferocity that it was a little bit earlier, and now we continue to see that severe thunderstorm warning posted now a little farther to the east, past Greenfield, into Knightstown, all the way up to Newcastle for that storm. The heaviest part of the storm appears to be on maybe the northeast side. Here's the area near Bloomington that we were talking about. This is right along Interstate 69 as it approaches Bloomington. You can see the line of storms is rolling through, gusty winds, the same scenario that's played out on all of these traffic cameras as this line has passed by. Heavy rain comes down. Flooded roadways are going to be a concern initially. Also, the gusty winds. Visibility is lowered for sure, especially if you're in a high-profile vehicle. We can see how slowly some of the traffic is going there, especially with the emergency flashers on.
Bloomington. Whew.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. And also a good bit of lightning. I noticed on one of the other cameras, we saw some lightning continue to flash as the line traverses the state. People certainly going slower. One of the concerns that I have, especially in that same picture, is that, look, this is producing heavy rain that once the temperatures drop down below freezing, happening sometime around midnight tonight, yes, just 4 hours away, I think we're still going to have enough leftover moisture on some of the bridges and overpasses that there are going to be some icy patches. Now, some of this will run off, some of this will dry up, but usually we have a good bit of time before those temperatures ease their way down. This is a very different scenario. This is a strong cold front, and the temperatures are going to drop so quickly that we get something called a flash freeze, where we're going to see a lot of this leftover moisture freeze, maybe not on the ground where the ground temperatures are a little bit milder, but maybe the bridges and overpasses in any areas where that water is going to accumulate during the next several hours as the line moves through. So one area that we're tracking is farther to the south. We were looking at that camera in Bloomington. It's located right about there, right along Interstate 69. Very heavy rain there, and then a good bit of rain behind this. So once the initial batch of rain comes through, you probably have another maybe 30 minutes, 45, maybe an hour of rain, depending on where you're located, once that passes. On the north side of the line, maybe into, say, Fishers up to Pendleton, Anderson as well. This is where we're seeing this part of the line maybe get a little bit stronger here. In fact, some of the returns on the eastern side, say Lawrence, maybe over to Greenfield eventually, you could get some gusty winds. We saw that move through the airport where they gusted to 52. I think we could also be seeing some gusty winds move through there. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and quickly look at the wind field just to see if there's anything that's popping up that kind of raises my attention. It'll also give me a chance to take a little tour down south to see if there's anything new that's popping up. Nothing that's standing out. We are kind of looking at the backside of the front, which is why you do see all of these brighter colors. It's nothing that stands out to me. Farther to the south we go. There's that kink in the line that we saw with the tornado warning. It's why we saw those winds so strong closer to Bloomington. There is still a little bit of a bright spot there with some of the gusty winds as this is now passing south of Clear Creek. where we've had several issues with severe weather earlier this year. That's going to continue moving to the east, and at some point this will impact the southern part of Bartholomew County once that moves on by. But south from there, there's maybe another little notch or some brighter spots of some gustier winds. But elsewhere, I'm not really seeing a whole lot along the line that has me concerned immediately in the next 5-10 minutes or so about the possibility of any tornadic development. Okay, so one of the things I said I was going to do, and Colin, stay with me here, don't change just yet on me, because what I want to do is I want to talk about just kind of our overall forecast as this moves on by. So we'll kind of hit a brief overview of everything. We'll maybe run through a future track here. We'll talk about the 7-day forecast. Again, we've covered the severe storms. We're continuing to cover those, especially the area down to the south. Here's Bloomington. This is where that traffic camera was located just a moment ago. Tornado watch continuing to be trimmed back. We're going to see more and more counties removed from this. Hamilton County now out of the tornado watch. Likely going to see Marion County out of the tornado watch pretty soon. And the National Weather Service will continue to trim that back.
Rob,
yeah, go ahead.
they extended the watch time to 10 p.m.
Okay, it says 9 p.m. here on my graphic, so just note that.
And that just happened, by the way.
Okay,
so,
thank you for that.
Yep.
So we'll extend the time a little bit, probably for these eastern fringe
Yeah.
counties that maybe won't quite, or maybe some of the southeastern counties that won't quite see that front move through just yet. Here's your temperature map, and this is going to be incredible to watch about another hour or two from now, where Cincinnati is going to be close to 70, and we may see the temperatures in the western part of the state near freezing. So it's going to be spring to winter across the entire state of Indiana here, with current temperature in Indianapolis sitting at 59, but Bloomington's still at 63, and Bedford is close to 70 at this hour. Meanwhile, Lafayette has cooled down to 53. This map is going to change minute by minute with the new data that's coming in to suggest that, yeah, we've got these gusty winds that are moving in. There's Interstate 70 at mile marker 94. This is going to be on the east side, I believe.
Yeah, that's near Greenfield.
Greenfield, okay. You are looking at the gusty winds. Again, this has been something we've been showing you as the storms have passed on through. Gusty winds are going to pick up. Your visibility is going to go down. Sheets of rain along with gusty winds. People putting on their emergency flashers. Probably shouldn't be on the road if you can avoid it over the next maybe hour or so. But of course, folks have things to do, and want to make sure that we're alerting you to what's going to be happening. I am really just concerned about all of that water that's coming down with this rain, how much will be able to dry up before the temperatures reach freezing. That is going to be, it could be that we don't have any issues in the morning, Sean, or we could really have a skating rink out there tomorrow.
Well, and the last time this happened, when I was on with Matt, it's a very fine line, because the colder air and the wind will dry up. It's going to dry up some of this. How much and how quickly do the temperatures drop to then allow anything that's left over? Now, look, and we may get some snowbursts as this cold air advects into, and so that's kind of another dynamic. The bottom line here, you know, if you have to go to work tomorrow morning, it's likely going to be a good idea to get up maybe a little extra early, check in with our sunrise crews to see how this thing progresses tomorrow morning. And if you don't have ice issues, well, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have a needle-like wind issue tomorrow morning. That it's not like it's going to be our coldest wind chills of the winter, but coming on the backside of this record warmth, it's going to feel even colder, I believe, about 70 degrees colder. And one area we want to watch here, partner, south of Bloomington, near Lake Monroe.
Okay.
In my opinion, it looks like it's trying to tighten up a little bit.
Okay, I'll go down to that in just a moment. You're looking at a live picture outside our WTHR studios, looking at 11th Street at Meridian, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I think that's Illinois at 11th Street. As the rain has now pushed through, but look at all of the ponding. Again, I know that the storm has passed by this area, but look at all of the water on the roadways here. Even some of the ponding, you see that truck going through. How much of that will be left, Sean, is really going to be the issue for the morning. Let me show you temperatures here. Let me go back to the maps and talk about what we're expecting for the overnight and into tomorrow. 59 in Indy. Look, it's 35 in St. Louis. They were 77 earlier in the day today at 2 p.m. So 6 hours later, they have dropped 42 degrees in their temperature, and there's still teens behind it. They're not done dropping. They're going to keep going and likely get down into the teens themselves. We will do a similar drop. Ours is going to be delayed. Ours will happen over the next, I'd say, the next reading that comes in at Indy will probably be the top of the 9 o'clock hour. We'll probably be in the 30s at that point. So the drop has begun. You are going to notice it. The winds are going to pick up. Once this line passes, this is when things will get a little bit more interesting. Wind advisories are going to be in place all the way through the day on Monday because the strong northwest winds keep bringing in colder air. It includes everyone because winds could gust still 40 to 50 miles per hour even through tomorrow. Here's future track 13. Watch the temperatures drop. I think by midnight, we're probably going to be into the 30s by that point, and that's when we'll start to see this flash freeze. Anything that's left over, when you've got temperatures in the 20s and approaching the teens, if there's any puddles out there, especially on the bridges and overpasses, I think the ground temperatures may be warm, and that may help a little bit, but the elevated surfaces with temperatures into the 20s and teens, it's not going to be much to help from freezing. I think we're going to see that. And Sean also mentioned the possibility of maybe a little bit of light snow or a quick little snow burst. That too could cause some problems as the temperatures are going to be into the teens. Current wind gusts are currently sitting in the 30 to 40 mile per hour range, but the highest gust today, there's the 52 that we had earlier at the airport. A couple of other gusts here that were into the 40s, 30s and 40s overall, but that is the highest gust we've seen, and that was with that quick little burst that was right over the airport that Sean had been posting to you a little bit earlier. Windy with flurries. Now, your temperature tonight should be able to get down to 18, if you can believe that, sitting into the 50s and 60s right now. High temperature of 26, 15 for Tuesday morning. And this is also going to include wind gusts 40 to 45 miles per hour, which means that these teens and 20s are going to feel like 0 to maybe even 5 or 10 degrees below 0. Extremely cold air that's going to be in place and not going to warm up very much. Not much change here. Let me go back to that area Sean was talking about, closer to, say, to Bloomfield. And Sean, if you have it up,
Lake Monroe. Lake Monroe.
Okay, Lake Monroe.
Yep.
Let me go back to it just to show you what I have currently. This is the area that we're going to be talking about south of Indy. We'll go down there very quickly. There's a little bit of a notch in the, I see where I can already tell before I even turn on the velocity, the area that we're looking at. Let me switch here. Sensitivity on my radar wants to go up a little bit here, so let me see if I can pull it up at the velocity. That's the concern that we're going to see. You can see some of the rain coming down. You are looking at our live picture from just out our window here at the studio. Still some rain coming down on the backside of this system, and wet roadways potentially turning to ice tonight. We'll continue to watch that. Hey, Colin, let me go back to the radar because I want to dive in close to where this area is south of Bloomington. And yeah, Sean, I see exactly what you're talking about here. Let me just take a couple of things off of the map and then we'll show you the area that you were talking about right here. This is what I want to watch for. So here's Bloomington, here's Clear Creek, and this area that we're looking at right about there has a little minor couplet. There's a little notch in the line here. And what we're watching is from the radar's perspective, which is north in Indy. There may be some winds that are approaching the radar and then just a little spot of winds that are away from the radar. So there's an implied circulation right over, almost approaching Lake Monroe, Sean, at this point. That's the way it looks. It's very broad. It's not terribly tightened at the moment, but you're right. I think that's one area we're going to have to keep our eye on.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, it's, look, I mean, I just tweeted out, west of the line, the severe threat's over. Along and east of the line for the next couple of hours, potential that we could get still get some areas of rotation that may require some additional tornado warnings. That one in particular that Rob's talking about is going to go right across Lake Monroe.
Yeah, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here and track it because this is the area where what we don't want to see happen is the next scan or two that comes in to see that become tighter and tighter. Because that's how quickly these lines can change. It doesn't take but 1 or 2 scans, maybe 5 minutes or so, for it to tighten up just enough for it to spin up. So here's Lake Monroe. You're talking about Smithville right here. Let me get in a little bit closer. We'll see if we can hit some of these roadways just so you can see. There's Smithville Road. We're looking at State Road 37. That's right there. It's now past that, continuing to push to the east, south of Smithville Road. There's another road here on the east side of the lake. This is going to be Night Ridge Road that we're looking at, and again, right over Lake Monroe, probably at this point. The scan is a little farther to the west, but given the location of where it is and how quickly these are moving, it's probably over the lake at this point. And there's a couple of bright spots there where likely the winds have picked up quite a bit. If nothing else, Sean, I think we're going to be dealing with gusty winds once that passes over Lake Monroe, especially over the lake itself, because there's nothing to slow it down at that point. Strong southwest winds are going to pick up. So if you're in the Lake Monroe area, the storm is probably pretty rough at the moment, even just from the winds, and we're still monitoring a little bit of minor rotation that's popped up near the lake. North from there, now through the east side of Indy, severe thunderstorm warnings continue as this pushes east. Not seeing much in the way of any rotation there, although we're going to continue to keep our eye on it. I'm just monitoring this as we go through just to watch that line. Really, I think that's the only game in town at this point, Sean, that I see that has me a little bit concerned is that little notch that's just right near Lake Monroe. Otherwise, now pushing through the city and on the east side, like you said, I think it's just the eastern half of the state or the eastern maybe third of the state that's got to deal with this line.
Yeah, and I agree. In terms of rotation, that particular area, just had somebody tell me the power is out on the east side of Indy and the Raymond Park area. I just checked from a statewide perspective. We're over 6,000 customers, and if you guys can throw me on links too, I'm just going to bounce around a little bit if you can here. So there's that area of rotation near Lake Monroe. Again, we've been trying to stress, if you're on the lake, just treat it like it's a tornado until this line can get to your east. I would expect it to be to your east before 8:25. So another maybe 10 minutes or so, okay? And then I want to expand the radar. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue, includes Nashville, includes Trafalgar, all of Johnson County. Eventually, Columbus, Edinburgh will be included in this. Shelbyville will be included. But behind this line, the threat of severe weather is over. That includes Beech Grove, Indianapolis, Lawrence, all of you in Hendricks County, Boone, Hamilton County. The severe threat's over. So you can go to bed now. It does not mean we're still going to have a very windy night. Please know that. Non-thunderstorm winds will continue. Next in line will be Newcastle. When I say next in line, we're talking about pockets of 55 to near 60 mile per hour gust along this line. The severe, let me put on the shear rate, might make it a little bit easier to find some of these areas where the wind may peak up a bit. So cutting across Greenfield, heading toward Morristown and eventually Knightstown. This severe thunderstorm warning goes until 8:30 p.m. The tornado watch will go until 10 o'clock. By 10:30, the majority of this is going to be out of our state. It then turns into a Kentucky and Ohio issue overnight. But in between now and then, we still have some issues here as we'll be monitoring radar very, very closely. And the Weather Service doing the same. They're seeing the same things that we are. There are thresholds to meet on these radar scans to issue warnings. And right now, the rotation that is over the central and eastern shores of Lake Monroe, not meeting it just yet, does not mean that at a scan in a couple of minutes, it may not change, okay? If you are on the campus of IU University, if you're in Bloomington, threat of severe weather for you, despite the fact that you're still under the warning, the severe threat is to your east now. The strongest wind is to your east, moving over the lake, moving through Brown County. We'll get additional severe thunderstorm warnings for places like Brownstown, as you're looking at the NDOT camera there at 70 and State Road 109 there, Rob.
One of the things I want to do is I want to walk you through, now that we're starting to see the severe threat wane, and it's not done, but it's starting to come down a bit, especially for many of our locations. If you're tuning in, we've been talking about this flash freeze and how temperatures are going to drop, but I want to show you that. I want to show you how quickly the temperatures are going to drop, and then we'll check back in with Sean to see if there's any new information when it comes to any of the severe threat from this. But let's talk about where we are. We'll kind of wrap up the severe threat likely after this evening. This is until 10 p.m. Ignore what it says there with 9 p.m. Temperatures continuing to fall, now down to 37 at Champaign, and I said that would be the case. Their 8 p.m. observation came in. They're sitting at 30s. Meanwhile, it's still 70 in Cincinnati, and we're seeing this slice across the state. Temperatures are now plummeting. Now it's a race against drying up that rain with the dropping temperatures getting below freezing. And we do think that that will happen sometime right after midnight or so. So wind gusts have been strong at times. We've had some gusts as high as 52 miles per hour across the state. That's what we've been seeing. We saw that in Indy Look at the dramatic drop here. 70 in Louisville, 35 in St. Louis, 12 in Des Moines. And the teens will be here by tonight. That's how quickly this air mass is going to change. It is changing right now. We are in it. We are in the change that is happening. Still the severe thunderstorm warnings, those are going to be wrapping up. Wind advisories are in place because in order to get those 50s and 60s and 70s out of here and get the teens and 20s to move in, you've got to push the air. And that's exactly what these winds are going to do. Gusts at times 40 to 45 miles per hour through the overnight tonight, likely into the day tomorrow, and those wind gusts are going to make it feel so much colder. Sean described it as needles tomorrow is what the wind's going to feel like. Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to feel like. So let me show you future track 13. I'll also show you some temperatures and show you some wind chill numbers here. 50s now going down into the 40s by 10 p.m. By midnight, we're down to the 20s or 30s, near 30 degrees. And this is when we could have that issue with flash freezing. Any leftover moisture, bridges, overpasses, your car handle, your door handle, that's where we're expecting the flash freeze to occur. And the temperatures are probably going to keep dropping from there. Here's another camera, NDOT camera from Interstate 70 here at 103. State Road 9 is what you're looking at. And another one here in Interstate 69 near Madison Avenue. This is a little farther to the north and east here at mile marker 224. How much of that will we be able to dry up? As a lot of this is going to depend on those winds, the gusty winds at times. Currently 30 to almost 40 miles per hour. There's a 40 mile per hour gust in Frankfort. Gusts, as I mentioned, have been as high as 52 miles per hour. There was one in Indianapolis that was 52. There was a 45 mile per hour gust at Eagle Creek. There was a 40 mile per hour gust in Frankfort. Again, we just saw that one come through. Let's talk temperatures. Since midnight, we made it to 67 in Indy. That did break the record of 65 for today, and one of the warmest temperatures we've seen on record this late in the season. 70 degrees is what the temperatures were in Bedford and Seymour earlier in the day today. Simply incredible that it's late December and we're talking about 60s and 70s. Now compare that to your high temperatures for tomorrow. 26. We're currently well warmer at this hour than where we're going to be tomorrow for sure, by a long shot. Temperatures will plummet. We will likely be into the 30s and 20s by midnight, as I said. But let's go a little further than that. Let's go into Monday morning, into the teens. We do expect to get into the teens. I think this model may be getting a little too chilly for Monday morning, but I do think it will stay into the 20s during the day on Monday and probably go back down into the teens by early Tuesday morning. As the temperatures are just going to stay cold. There's just going to be a steady supply of colder air from those gusty winds bringing the temperatures in. It does bring us down into the low teens. We'll have to see if that remains to be the case. Let's talk wind chills though, because this is going to be even more impressive. Wind chills around midnight tonight are probably going to be into the teens, and it probably won't improve until Tuesday midday. So once the wind chills go down into the single digits or even below zero, it's probably going to stay there all through Monday and into early Tuesday morning. So by tomorrow morning, just I'd say 12 hours from now at this point, it's going to be near zero, maybe even below zero in some spots. Flash freeze is going to be our concern. Wind chill may improve into the single digits by the midday and afternoon time frame. We may get into the teens briefly, but the winds are still going to be so strong that even by Monday evening and late Monday night, we'll go back down to feeling like it's near zero or even slightly below zero by Tuesday morning. I think that's going to be the coldest part of the forecast, and then the temperatures will slowly begin to improve, and the winds will slowly begin to improve. They won't be quite as blustery as they will have been during the entire day on Monday. So your 7-day forecast, before I hand it back to Sean here, windy with some flurries for your Monday, temperatures into the teens and 20s. Then look into Tuesday. I think this is actually when the coldest of the air is moved in behind all of these very strong storms, and I either am hearing rain picking back up or the wind picking back up here at the studio. Temperatures go back up into the upper 20s, but we don't get back above freezing until Wednesday as we ring in the new year. Probably going to have dry for New Year's Eve, but it's going to certainly be cold, and we could see a chance for a few flurries as we get into the first day of the new year. But right now, it doesn't look like this will lead to much in the way of any accumulation. Heading into the rest of the week, temperatures look cold. 30 is expected for Friday, and then maybe getting up to 40 degrees by Sunday, but of course that part of the forecast is still 7 days out. A lot that is expected over the next 24 hours here, Sean.
Well, this has been one heck of a December, I will say that. Yeah, and you heard it was a burst of rain that's redeveloped over the city. I will tell you again, If you live in Indianapolis, the threat of severe weather is over. Yes, it's a burst of rain. It is going to be windy tonight. Rob talked about the cold. I do want to spend a little time on power outages. I'm going to start from a regional perspective first, because this is just a massive storm. Look at all of the outages in Michigan, over 40,000. All right, statewide total for Illinois pushing 13, for Ohio 2,000, and then for the state here in Indiana, we're at 7,000. Now, I want to get in a little bit closer and do some county analysis as we get a little bit closer here. Hang tight. These numbers are fluid, please know that, okay? This is a snapshot. So Marion County, 900, that number may climb quite a bit, it's possible. Vigo County, 100, last check, 300 in Greene County, Tippecanoe, 100. And in Monroe County, where we've had some rotation, the rotation now east, I will say, from a radar perspective, there's not a whole lot I'm seeing that worries me in terms of rotation. We are still going to have severe thunderstorm warnings. Let me show you those. And let's clear this off, and we'll go back to the radar. And let me get rid of our analysis there. So again, west of this line, the threat of severe weather is over. You're still going to have some additional warnings on the eastern part of the state. But the farther this thing gets to the east, the less of a chance of rotation it will have. Most of what we're going to have, it looks like, and Rob, correct me, have you seen any wind reports?
Other than the 52-mile-per-hour gusts from the airport, I haven't seen any storm reports come in.
And
I was literally just reading that. Over in Illinois, it does appear like we have a confirmed tornado that happened.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I'm checking some of the, we got the 52 in Bainbridge. We had a public report of 64 near Brazil from earlier, it looks like. So listen, if we can get through this with not a whole lot of damage, boy, I'd love it. And we're just going to have to deal with the cold that's going to be coming in here. And that's going to be an overnight. In terms of, and someone asked me this earlier, hey, this flash freeze, is that an evening deal? Based on the latest modeling, it looked like after midnight.
Right after midnight.
Is that okay? Yeah. So this is an after midnight kind of situation. If your car is going to be parked outside tonight, it may be a good idea, after the rain moves out of your area, it's probably a good idea, open up your doors and try to wipe them down as much as you can with a towel to dry up as much moisture as you can, because what will happen, because we're going to be so cold tomorrow morning, and it's a fast drop, and a lot of this moisture may not get dried up by the wind, it's conceivable that your door may get frozen overnight tonight. As we drop down into the low 20s and upper teens tomorrow morning, okay? Let's bounce around. Let's do, again, a little analysis here. We are on WTHR Plus. This is the beauty of this platform. We can stay on this thing as long as we want, and we are not interrupting any of the programming. And so let's start northeast. So the farthest the severe thunderstorm warning goes right now is into Muncie and Mount Pleasant. And when we say severe thunderstorm warning, we're talking about the potential of wind gust, not along the entire line, please know that, but in areas within the line, and it's probably best to use this product, where we see these little shades of green, and these aren't even the strongest ones we've had from earlier. In fact, let's just take this back. Let's take this thing back about 3 hours so you can see the progression. You can also see where the strongest pockets are on the shear rate product right now, moving through the forest here and about to get into I-65 territory, okay? Edinburgh, Taylorsville, where we start to see pockets of red on this particular radar product is where we have a higher chance of getting wind strong enough to produce some damage, okay? Nashville, severe threat, done. Lake Lemon, done. Lake Monroe, done. Now, I do not have, pardon me, let me put the tornado watch up so you can get they're going to start shaving this off. Monroe County, you're done. Martinsville, that you should be out of the watch, and they'll update that. This watch, by the way, goes technically until 10 p.m., but this thing will be done here pretty quickly. By the time we get to 10, this line is going to be well out of here. But let me spend a little time on this. So these are our current temperatures. Look at Champaign. They almost hit 70 today, didn't they, Rob?
Yeah, I believe, they were certainly in the upper 60s.
So you can see how quickly and abrupt this is going to be. Now, dew points are still, even for December, this is still an impressive dew point that we're seeing in the 50s. But look west. So that's what's on the way here. And let me just show you another. So this is the radar in motion. Sometimes it's good to kind of see this. You can see they've expanded the severe thunderstorm warnings.
One of the things, Sean, that I noticed while you've got the radar popped up there is how much rain came with this. Because if you looked at the modeling yesterday, it showed maybe a little bit of convection, the thunderstorms, but it didn't show quite as much rain with it. So I'm impressed, and we saw that 61-degree dew point earlier in the day, how much moisture we're able to get out of this. Now that has me concerned for that flash freeze that we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, again, because this is going to be all kind of physics, isn't it? How this thing plays out tomorrow morning. How much of this leftover moisture on the roads can we dry off with the wind and the drier air that's coming in? That is it. Now, the road crews, I assume, will be out and try to work on this stuff, but it'll be a race against time. I do want to show the temperature map just one more time, because this is just, look at that. 70 in Louisville, 12 in Des Moines.
St. Louis was 77 at 2 p.m. I made sure I noted because I knew we were going to be using this map. 77, they have dropped 42 degrees in 6 hours.
My nephew coaches a high school basketball team. He's over in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. He goes, talk about it. He texted this to me about 6:30. He said it was 73 at 12:30. When they left at 2:45 p.m. for their pregame meal, it was already down to 38.
Wow.
So it just shows you how quickly this stuff's going to be coming.
And they had snow squall warnings, by the way, earlier in the day today.
Yeah, so this...
let me talk a little bit about kind of the overall, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to reset here, talk a little bit about what we're seeing, and probably stay with this until the line of severe storms has exited our viewing area. Within, I'd say, another hour, probably through about 9:30. And then we'll be off here on WTHR Plus. But of course, we'll have a wrap up of everything that we've been seeing through the day at 11 p.m. on WTHR. But just wanted to kind of let you know kind of where we are in the grand scheme of things. Now, Colin, if you're able to go to links 1, I'll pop that up real quick, and I'll go here to the chroma key just to show you what we're tracking. Once this moves out of here, leftover rain, and there's a good bit of rain. As I told Sean, I'm surprised by how much heavy rain is still coming down when we were not expecting perhaps this volume of rain. And that's even more of a concern when it comes to that flash freezing. So looking still at some of the traffic cameras here because of that concern for the roadways. It doesn't look so bad there in Newcastle, but I don't know that the line of storms has quite reached Newcastle just yet. Our folks here trying to get ahead of the line of storms. Probably keep going back to that. But let me show you a couple of things here. So I know we've been kind of resetting this, but I really want to drive home that point now that most of the area, not all of you, most of the area is clear of the thunderstorms. I really want to drive home this point about temperature. Sean showed you this map earlier where we were 67 earlier in the day. We will get another update of these temperatures right at closer to the top of the hour within another half hour. Some of these update every 20 minutes or so, but usually the bigger stations update right close to the top of the hour. I'm willing to bet, and I'll come back to this in 30 minutes, so stick around because I'll go back and show it. I'm willing to bet that we're going to be in the low 50s or maybe even 40s here at the airport when just an hour ago we were into the 60s. But once that passes with gusty winds, notice the highest winds that we're seeing currently on this map are actually behind the front. That's what's pushing the colder air in here. And you're going to be dealing with 40, 45, maybe 50 mile per hour wind gusts tonight, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, even into early Tuesday morning. Although I think by sometime Monday afternoon, we'll start to see the winds subside just a little bit. Looks like the strongest of the winds may happen sometime early in the day on Monday. But these wind gusts accompany the front, but really it's all about moving this colder air in. What's pushing all of this colder air in are those strong winds that are still going to gust at times to 40 or 50 miles per hour. Back to the west, they have snow that's falling. That's how cold that air mass is. Although it's an extremely cold air mass, even some blizzard warnings were posted there just to the north. In fact, while I've got this graphic up, let me show you that larger picture. Blizzard warnings right now in the western part of Minnesota, northern parts of Iowa, northern parts of the UP. That's a lot of territory that's encompassing with blizzard warnings just because of how strong the winds are. And then winter storm warnings east from there. Remember, blizzards have a very particular set of criteria to meet in order for it to become a blizzard, usually having to deal with the visibility being as much of a concern. East from there, they may not have quite the criteria, hence the winter storm warnings. We are in a part of the forecast where it's not going to be quite as snowy. Temperatures will still be cold, but we don't have quite the impulse as they do to the north. I also noticed there were a couple of tornado warnings in the southern part of the state, meaning we still have to watch this line. Anywhere along that line, we could still see some brief spin-ups, but we're probably about 2/3 of the way through with this line. You see a live picture here from Interstate 65. This is US 31 at mile marker 75. That's going to be closer to, say, Columbus, if I'm not mistaken. You can see that everybody has their emergency flashers on. We've seen it every interstate when we take these cameras as those heavy winds come through, sheets of rain, and that wind will not subside. It will change direction, but it will not subside immediately after that line moves through. It's going to change directions out of the north and west. Let's talk about those temperatures. The wind gusts are going to lower the temperatures quite a bit, and it's going to make it feel so much colder. So here's Future Track 13. I think by midnight, and Sean was talking about when that flash freeze is going to happen. Watch the temperature here right at midnight. I think right at midnight is when we see the temperatures dip below freezing. Maybe not for the eastern part of the state and maybe a little bit earlier for the western part of the state, but I think it's a nice round number right at midnight for getting the temperatures below freezing and start to see things really change when it comes to icy situations. Going down into the 20s just a couple of hours later at 2 a.m., we're all into the 20s. Everyone in the state is going to be into the 20s, and from there it's continuing to drop, headed for the teens by sunrise, maybe with a couple of little quick bursts of some snow showers from that system up to the north. Sean, if you have anything, let me know what you're looking at over there. Current wind gusts, again, around 40 miles per hour at Indy. A couple of other locations showing some higher gusts. There's that higher gust that we saw, 52. There were a couple of other reports. There was a 64 mile per hour wind gust that was just north and west of Indy. High temperatures today were record-breaking. The old record was 65. We did better than that by 2 degrees at the airport with 67. So we're going from record warmth down to bitter cold and wind chills that are going to be well below that, with a 26-degree high temperature for your Monday with feels-like temperatures that are going to be in the single digits. Here's the temperature map without the radar on it, just to show you the pretty colors when it gets into those teens. The temperature is likely staying in the teens for the next couple of nights and only getting into the 20s for your daytime highs. There's a little bit closer of a view of Evansville, where we did have some tornado warnings a bit earlier. Traffic still flowing, but rain still falling. As the storms continue to move through the southern part of the state with a little bit more vigor there. Look at the visibility going down in Newcastle. This is that same shot we saw a little bit earlier on Interstate 70. All the traffic has their emergency flashers on, wind gusts likely, low visibility, ponding on the roadways. How much of this will freeze once the temperatures drop? And they will drop along with wind chills that are going to be going down below freezing, certainly within the next couple of hours. Let me show you this map. This is the wind chill for tonight. Starting, I think, through about midnight, we're going to see the wind chills feel like it's into the teens. Then it's going to feel like it's in the single digits by morning, feeling like it's sub-zero before the sun comes up. Probably going to hold there, maybe getting up to around 10 by the afternoon. Once we get into the afternoon, we may see this improve a little bit as the temperatures try to warm up. But by this point, the winds are also going to be very gusty. This, I think, is when we're going to have wind gusts anywhere from 40 to 45 miles per hour before the winds start to subside, but the temperatures are going to drop into the teens again. Feels like temperatures will still feel like they're near zero for Tuesday morning. So we've got about 24 to maybe 36 hours of bitterly cold wind chills before things improve by Tuesday afternoon as the temperatures warm up, but also the winds come way down. So that's a lot. And our 7-day forecast, here it is. 26 for your high temperature tomorrow, 15 for the low on Tuesday morning, and I think that'll be the coldest part of the forecast, with 28 as our low temperature. Colin, leave that up there for a second because I just want to go back to the radar just to see if there's anything that's popping up, just to get a quick look at that line is what we're seeing with severe thunderstorm warnings. We've, like I said, got another hour before this completely traverses the state. Still looking pretty linear in nature overall. There's a couple of little kinks that we've been watching. And Sean, have you seen anything with any of those little breaks in that line that's been very impressive at all?
Not yet, but what I want to do, so I'm going to do a radar sequence of the radar itself, but I also want to put temperatures on this with radar data for the last 6 hours, so you can kind of see this progression, how it's marched through the state, and then the temperatures that are falling quickly behind it.
Watch Champaign.
Yeah, keep an eye on Champaign. Boom, in the 30s now, after almost hitting 70 degrees today. So this is, I'm sure we've had one, Rob. I just, can't think of it. And of course, my brain's not as sharp as it used to be at my age. But this is one of the sharper cold fronts that we've had in a while here.
I can't remember forecasting a temperature drop of 40 degrees in 6 hours before.
Yeah.
We've seen strong cold fronts before, but usually it takes, 24 hours to get the coldest of the air in place where you see the temperatures drop that substantially.
Yeah.
But it's why we've been using the term, flash freeze.
Correct.
That we're concerned about. And I continue to watch our traffic cameras near Newcastle where the line is rolling.
And look,
through.
I mean, Rob and I would love to tell you exactly how the roads and the sidewalks and the bridges are going to be tomorrow morning, and no one can. We just don't know how quickly this moisture is going to dry up. We can tell you that the colder it gets tomorrow morning, the less impactful the salt treatment will be. But when the rain ends in your area, it will be a good idea before you go to bed to lay your salt out on your sidewalks and your steps. That would be another recommendation I would have. But as we look at the radar here, we continue to search for any little hint of rotation. I can tell you, and speaking of the radar, let's take it back in time and look how quickly, again, this line has progressed here. But if you recall, we had the tornado warning that was issued for Greene County, and that was allowed to expire. And then we kept watching. Let me get a little closer here. And it started to tighten up a little bit as they got closer to Lake Monroe, and thankfully, and look where that thing is now. I mean, it's crossing I-65, what's left of it. So this thing is really moving quickly. Behind it, severe threat, again, not necessarily the wind, you're still gonna have a wind, but the severe threat is winding down. And as fast as this thing's moving, again, we were saying around 10 o'clock, not all of it, but the bulk of it should certainly be out of our viewing area and almost be out of the state.
One of the things you mentioned I want to go back to, talking about salt treatment, and can't tell you exactly what's going to be happening with the roadways in the morning. And part of the problem, Sean, is that there's a lot of heavy rain that's falling right now. There's no way that they could treat ahead of this. There's going to be a short window when this rain wraps up and the temperatures are down to freezing for the crews to get a handle on it. I just don't know how they would be able to. It's just feasibly not going to be possible. Now look, there's been a lot of issues in the past where we've had systems come through and maybe certain areas didn't get the treatment that they should have for whatever reason. But I really think this one is just a matter of how quickly the temperatures are dropping. You can't treat when there's this much rain falling. And temperatures are in the 60s, by the way. And because the temperatures are going to be dropping so quickly, and the other thing Sean mentioned is once you get down into the teens, salt treatment becomes less and less effective. So that'll be several things to watch. Northwest of here, northwest of Indy, there's nothing that's showing up, at least on radar, that's falling. If it is, it's more of a mist than anything else. But drier conditions. So you're already starting to see the drier air move in. More than likely, it's colder air. Just hoping that that's able to dry up. But this is a lot of rain that's fallen. I was not expecting the radar to look this vigorous. All of the modeling that we had coming into this event said that we'd see some storms, but I was not expecting this much rain. I'm curious to see how much rain we saw actually fall at the airport when this came through. Judging by this, I'd say we probably picked up 1/4 of an inch, maybe, Sean. I'm not quite sure I'll have to see if I can pull some numbers here. For some of the actual rainfall totals, but that's a good bit of rain that I wasn't expecting to see. Why I'm saying that is because you fold that into the forecast of what's going to happen overnight tonight and into tomorrow. And that's why we've really been trying to drive this point home about flash freezing tomorrow morning. Be careful. Take care of your car overnight tonight before those temperatures dip too cold, because it may just freeze the door shut. You won't be able to get into the car door tomorrow because it's just frozen shut from the rain that fell. That's going to be kind of a unique situation to this particular storm that we haven't really seen with a system so far this year. I think this one's very unique. I haven't seen too many systems like this at all, where we've been talking about 60-degree temperatures going down to flash freezing overnight. Surely we've said, hey, the next couple of days it's going to get colder, but not within 6 hours.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead.
So our desk is relaying, this is State Road 59 northbound, State Road 54. This is going to be in Greene County. They're closed due to a structure collapse.
Okay, I'm going to try to get in close. Keep
So,
talking. I'm going to get in.
Well,
closer.
it's going to be north of Linton.
Yep.
And I was looking at Google Maps. I don't want to speculate on what structure could be collapsed, but
Give me the street roads again.
State Road 59 and State Road 54.
Okay.
It's where they it's where 54 kind of splits apart. I'm trying to, let's see here.
I may have to do this off camera.
I'll tell you what, I might be able to pop it on links too. Stand by here.
Okay, there's State Road 59. I see that now. Did you say this is north of Linton or south?
Yeah,
of
it's
Linton?
just northwest of Linton there.
Okay.
It's near, if you zoom in,
State Road
see
54.
Hoosier?
Yep.
It's probably going to be really close to that, just south of Hoosier.
Okay. So this is
Right,
the area.
right where they split. You see where 59 and 54 split?
Yep. And the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on that velocity to see and back the radar up to see if that's where we saw that rotation a little bit earlier. What exactly was it that they
They just said collapse, closed due to a structure collapse. That's all that we're getting at this point. And I'm looking back.
It is right where that couplet went through.
Okay. Yep. All right. So we'll have to wait and see now whether or not we're talking. We need to know what kind of structure it is.
It doesn't look very impressive on the radar, but there's definitely a pulse in the radar that I've been seeing.
Yeah.
At about, looks like maybe 7:20 this evening. So this is the area that Sean and I are talking about here. So I backed the radar up, and this is Linton. This is the area Hoosier that Sean was talking about. This little area right here, it's probably as the line itself was coming through. So it may be difficult to determine whether these were just winds that came through that caused a problem. And it may not have been wind related at all, but we're just trying to figure out maybe what the radar looked like at that point. There may have implied a little bit of a circulation there, Sean, as that moved on by. And I believe this may be, and I'll have to maybe fast forward the radar a little bit, this may be the same circulation that triggered the warning
Correct.
in Greene County?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It was. And I see what you're talking about around 7:20.
Yep.
And then the warning.
It's just a little brief pop up in the impulse. In fact, I'm going to go through that. Watch the colors spike a little bit there close to Linton. Right about there.
Yeah.
They just spiked, and then as that moved east, you really started to see, it looks almost like the little lower level jet. Look at the bright greens, really picked up, and then the tornado warning was issued. Looks like the tornado warning was issued at 7:35-ish, 7:37, somewhere in there, when it really started to ramp up. But backing up to where that location was, looks like it passed by that location around 7:20 or so, as the front was right. And this, if I were looking at this in real time, I would say, okay, this is an area we need to watch, but it doesn't stick out to me as a tight couplet. Yeah. We are also a good ways away from the radar, so we're in an area there in 100%. Indiana where we don't get a great look at the radar, but it'll be interesting to see what we hear about what's transpired down there into near Hoosier, you said. Yep.
Yeah. So again, we don't know. We assume it's weather related, whether or not it's straight line wind. In fact, let me I'll dip into the Weather Service chat room and just see if if this has been brought up there at all.
Yeah, so again, one of the things that we are going to watch, that we've really been watching, and you can see it a little bit as I've stopped it here at 720. There is a little bit of a notch. Now, the line itself is kind of forming a little bit of an S at this time frame. And so right where we see that S, there's a little bit of implied circulation here, just to the north and west of Linton, right there where those greens and reds are kind of close to each other. You have to consider that the radar itself is due northeast of this location. And this is right before eventually this went tornado warned farther to the east as this approached Bloomfield and then kept moving to the east. By that point, it certainly got better organized, but this is the type of scenario that we worry about with these lines. The spin-ups can be so quick. They can also be very difficult to discern on radar. You can see them, but you can't see them as easily or perhaps as early as you'd like, especially in an area here where we don't have the radar clarity that we do, say, if this were to happen a little farther to the north in Indy. So we're still trying to gather exactly what's happened here. Northwest of Linton, very close to Hoosier, the meeting here of State Road 54 and 59. We understand that there is a partial building that has collapsed, that has closed the traffic in that area. So want to make sure you're avoiding that. We'll put the radar back into the current position to show you where we are right now. You see, of course, things have moved much farther to the east. Still watching severe thunderstorm warnings, but for the most part, this is done in Indy. The rain is wrapping up, and we're watching this part of the line really exit the state at this point. Still has quite a bit of time. Watch as it moves on through. You'll see a couple of these little kinks develop every now and then. There's the one that produced the tornado warning. That system continued moving to the east. This loop is going to go all the way through this evening and all along that line as it marched across the state. Severe thunderstorm warnings. And again, it resets here. By the way, notice that every now and then those areas that do produce tornado warnings, they stay with the line. You have to continue to watch them because you'll get more of those spin-ups along that same area of the line. We saw it earlier into Illinois, and that same portion of the line is what prompted the tornado warning just to the east. Just to keep in mind, right about there is where we're seeing that concern, but the tornado warning was a little bit east. I should say right about there, just according to where the tip of my finger is where we're watching for some potential damage that we've gotten word of. Also have heard of some damage that was a little farther to the west, south of Decatur earlier. That was a fairly impressive radar signature from a tornado there that happened earlier in the day. Where we did have a confirmed tornado on the ground reported by spotters, but we also saw debris on the radar. We didn't have that kind of signature when these rolled into Indiana. We didn't see that type of structure with the storms. Saw it a couple of times. In fact, when this was just east of that area in Linton where we saw the tornado warning prompted, in fact, right there, it did show probably about the best structure that we'd seen all evening as far as tornadic structure. But even that was relatively weak, and it was quick. It only lasted about a radar scan or two before we saw it weaken and continue pushing to the east. And now just about everyone here is going to see things quiet down, but certainly cool down very, very quickly. We are approaching 8:43 now, just past 8:43, and still keeping you updated here along with meteorologist Sean Ash. I'm meteorologist Robb Ellis. We are tracking storms still traversing the state and the big cool down beyond that, the flash freeze that's going to be on the way. Once these storms wrap up, they exit, temperatures will drop, and we have big concerns for the possibility of some icy conditions in the morning because all of that rain, if it doesn't go anywhere, it may freeze, especially on bridges and overpasses. Still keeping an eye on the tornado watch. I did update this to say 10 p.m. because that's how late the tornado watch will go. Temperatures across the state, take a look, they continue to drop. Sean showed you this earlier, 64 in Newcastle, 66 in Columbus, but these are probably going to be updated within the next 10 minutes or so, and you're going to see all of these numbers drop in a big way. Each time they update, the new data comes in, the new sensor information comes in, the temperatures are just going to drop like a rock. I mean, it is going to be probably a 40-degree drop over the course of maybe 5 hours or so. From the mid-60s for most of you today, even some 70s farther to the south there were, but probably into the 20s by after midnight and staying into the 20s, maybe even going into the teens by early morning tomorrow. There's the line now almost exiting. There's a little bit of a kink here just east of Newcastle. We'll keep to watch on that. Most of the line of storms is pretty linear. No kinks or areas that we have to watch for rotation, but there's a few. Another one southeast of Columbus there. I'm sure Sean is monitoring that as well. The gusts that we've seen at times, 40, 45 miles per hour behind the front as the gusty winds bring in the colder air. As the front passes, there's a 41 mile per hour gust at Columbus, 38 mile per hour gusts in Shelbyville as the front moved through. Gusts have been at times a little bit higher than that. We've seen a few locations report 50 mile per hour gusts. 70, the last report from Louisville, likely will stay there until the front moves through. And then they too are going to experience the huge drop in temperatures. St. Louis is probably going to be into the 20s by the next observation, which is going to come in within the next 10, 15 minutes or so. They're currently at 35, but that was as of the 8 o'clock observation. So that observation is 45 minutes old, and their temperatures have likely continued to steadily drop. I think they're probably going to be in the low 20s by the 9 o'clock observation, which is just about 10 or 15 minutes away. Chicago sitting at 40 degrees, but it's nothing like these teens that we're seeing back to the west where the temperatures have dropped in a big way. I like this view because I'm able to, if I'm able to zoom back out, I like to be able to show you this because it really gives you an idea. Look, we're dealing with severe thunderstorm warnings, even some tornado warnings here, but look to the north. Winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, blizzard warnings, all the way from the Canadian border down to the northern part of Iowa, into the UP of Michigan, northern parts of Wisconsin currently, and then more winter storm warnings into parts of the Northeast. As this system, most of the system stays to our north, but it's quite wound up in the atmosphere. There's a lot of snow that's going to be moving through there and also lowering some visibilities. May not necessarily amount to heavy amounts of snow, depth of snow, but certainly going to have huge impacts when it comes to what people can expect there. Blowing snow, low temperatures as well. Keep in mind, we've been talking about it ourselves. You know, our temperatures are going to be down into the teens, but farther to the north, salt treatment will be very, very difficult when the temperatures get down below, say, 10 or 15 degrees, and you have that much snow that's falling. Wind advisories are still in place. They're going to go through tomorrow afternoon because that's where we're expecting winds to gust as high as 40 to 45 miles per hour. It's what's dropping the temperatures right now. You're looking at a live picture from Seymour, from one of our NDOT cameras, one of the more rural cameras, but it does give you an idea of what the southern part of the state is dealing with right now as that line of storms continues to move on through. Of course, the southern part of the state still has a pretty strong part of the line to move through. Meanwhile, farther north you go, it's really the eastern part of the state that's having to deal with that. Future Track 13s dropping those temperatures into the teens by early Monday morning, and watch for a little bit of light snow, more of a flurry than anything else, but we could see a couple of areas pick up some additional snow even tomorrow during the middle part of the day. Current wind gusts into the 40s, but there's the high wind gust that we saw at Indy's airport here, 52. We did see a gust to 64 farther to the north and west, I believe closer to Crawfordsville, but I'll have to check on that just to make sure I have the location correct. 67, our high temperature today, that broke the old record of 65 degrees. So a new record for this particular date and one of the warmest days we've seen this late in the season. Compare that to the high temperatures tomorrow where we won't get out of the 20s. We won't get above freezing and probably won't for at least another 2 days. Now that the temperatures have dropped, once they get below freezing, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. They will stay below freezing. Monday into Monday afternoon, probably only getting into the 20s. Monday night, they're going to get back down into the teens. Coldest morning will probably be Tuesday morning, and this is just the temperature. The wind chill is going to be even colder than that. Wind chills will drop down into the teens tonight and even get down to near zero by early tomorrow morning. Wind chill by 7 a.m. could be near zero, and probably only getting into the single digits to maybe near 10 or 15 or so by the afternoon before dropping yet again into the single digits to near a zero by early Tuesday morning. Cold air is on the way. It is almost here, and we are just about done with the severe storms. Meantime, there's your 7-day forecast. Windy with flurries expected for tomorrow. Let me go back to the radar now that I hit you with a full forecast update. Want to make sure we get over to the radar very quickly just to make sure that there's nothing that we've missed here. Anything that you've noticed, Sean, showing up in the last maybe half hour or so that's been of note?
No, just got a new report from our desk. Right now, this is going to be State Road 135 northbound, southbound, north of Mound Street in Brown County. All lanes closed, both directions due to trees. and power lines.
Okay.
A tree and power lines, which is not a shock that we're getting that. I do want to take you back. So we're going to go back. I'm going to show you the 6-hour temperature radar loop so you can see the progression of this impressive front. So this is just before 3 p.m. St. Louis at 75, 66 in Indy. You can see the snow on the backside. You can actually see the low going through Lake Michigan. Watch the temperatures tumble. Watch the snow spread eastward. Now, this is not a heavy snow track for us. However, it does appear that we're going to get a burst of snow overnight tonight. And then as we're coming up on the top of the hour, these temperatures will continue to update.
I think that little batch of snow that you mentioned that's in northern Illinois right now is not being well modeled.
Correct. And look, I would tell you a lot of time the models don't do well on cold air advection and upper level energy. So as fast as this cold air is in, it just cannot retain moisture. So what we'll see is it's going to just squeeze out whatever it can, and it will come in the form of flurries and snowbursts. Here's another radar temperature presentation. And
you'll also notice on the north side of this map, there were a couple of tornado warnings that came out earlier in Benton County, the northern part of White County. There was even a confirmed tornado warning in Iroquois.
And so our desk just sent this to us. This is from Linton News. Building collapse above the Sportsman Pub in Linton. We're trying to get some permission to use the pictures on the air. I'm just looking at it off the air right now. And it looks to me like a facade of the brick building was kind of pushed out in a way. Hopefully we haven't heard about any injuries, but hopefully but if you're in Greene County and you're familiar with the Sportsman's Pub there and Linton, that's where some of the damage was reported.
And it's likely from that same area of rotation that we dealt with earlier, 54 and 59 state roads, where we had the concerns of a collapse there, as well as the tornado warning that we saw a little further east from there.
Yeah, so let's set the stage as we're coming up here. We're about 10 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Severe threat, as we've been saying, for the metro area is done. It is done. It is going to be windy tonight. We're going to shift the gears to the cold air that's coming in. Rob's talking about if we get any other additional severe wind and or rotation, it's going to be along and east of this line. That still includes Greensburg. Seymour, it's over you as we speak. North Vernon, moving in, okay? Columbus, severe's done for you. Hope's done for you. Shelbyville, you have heavy rain, but the severe threat's done. Connorsville, Liberty, Richmond, Centerville. Until this can get to your east, this includes Cambridge City as well. Until it can get to your east, there's still potential. Let's clean it up and show the shear rate here. It's not overly impressive, but some pockets of wind potential. And that's the tornado watch that technically goes until 9 o'clock, but the tornado threat for Newcastle and Mount Pleasant and Spiceland, it is over. And so you got to be on or east of this line, but it is almost out of the state. And in terms of a time, man, this thing played out pretty much as it doesn't happen all the time, but it did in this particular case. Just passing along another report from our desk here that I'm checking on our team's channel if it will pop up for us. Oh boy, this thing is acting finicky. Speaking of, this comes from the City of Linton's Facebook page. Due to the severe storm that moved through our area, multiple down power lines across the town of Linton and the partial building collapse in downtown. Okay, that's from the public safety notice there from Linton, Indiana, in Greene County. From that area, let me just take you back here a few hours. If you're just tuning in here on WTHR Plus, we appreciate you. Robb Ellis, myself here, as this line is just about done. We're just about done with our coverage as it is no longer going to be a local issue. However, so let's go back on live Doppler 13 radar. All right. Linton at the time was under a severe thunderstorm warning with the tag that they've had all night long, tornado possible. This is at 7:10. Let's use the shear rate. And you can see some of those green specks moving through.
You know, the Louisville radar looks a little more impressive.
A little better?
Yeah, it
Let's
does
do
look
that.
a little bit better. But it's still not the strongest signature. You can see it, but
Yeah. But that's what moved through, and you'll eventually see the tornado warning that was issued for Bloomfield and points east.
and what's interesting about that, Sean, as I'm going back and looking through the same thing you're looking through, I'm trying
Yeah.
to see if there's any other way to see it. But
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's-
I had Paducah's right.
one scan may look good from one angle, and then another scan looks good from another angle.
Well, and so we're using Louisville, which in terms of a beam height is about 4,200
Yeah,
feet.
you're so high up. You're
So
wow.
high up. So yeah, no doubt some mid-level rotation. Just but it was warned. It was warned for wind damage. Look, and again, I always use this. Probably tired of hearing it, but it doesn't matter if it's a severe thunderstorm or if it's a tornado. If it's doing damage, it's doing damage, and severe thunderstorms can do tornado-like damage. But this area, I'll click on Linton, was under a severe thunderstorm warning with tornado possible tag and potential of 60+ mile per hour wind. So my expectation will be that the storm survey crew, and we're getting back to live radar here now, just so we can get everyone up to speed. No areas of rotation that we're concerned with. It's just along and east of this line where we could have some pockets of wind damage. But I suspect what will happen is that the Weather Service storm crew will go out and survey if they are requested, which I assume they will be requested by emergency managers there in Greene County to determine straight line wind or whether or not we did have a tornado touchdown. Either way, we know that there's been some damage in the town of Linton.
I also saw a report, excuse me, Sean, of 80 mile per hour wind potentially at the top of the Schneck building in Seymour. That was according to some mention in the National Weather Service chat, but we're still trying to confirm whether or not that was a legit reading or whether it's just several stories up enough that it's too high.
Yep.
So we think it could be legit. So there were some strong winds that were coming through the southern part of the state here.
Absolutely. Yeah, up and down. I mean, there's a reason and rightfully so, the Weather Service essentially warned the entire line and put the tornado possible tag. We're getting real close to the top of the hour. It'd be interesting to see what the observation is at the Indy Airport. Either way, Champaign now down to freezing. Okay, so 32 in Champaign from a high of, well, let's go back and look at it.
67, I believe, is what they
Let's
hit
go
earlier.
back. Let's go back. Hang with me here.
Sean, I understand they have some Linton imagery that I believe we're going to be able to pop up here in just a moment.
Yep. So here's
But
68 Champaign.
They've got the video up, or the imagery up now.
All right.
So quickly, we'll come back to that, but quickly, just wanted to mention, this is what we're looking at in downtown Linton here, above the Sportsman Pub. Appears that a facade may have come off of one of the buildings here. Unable to determine at this time what has caused this facade, whether it was weather-related because of winds, potentially something that was tornadic in the area, or whether it was just the heavy rain on this part of the building that caused that facade to peel off in the way it did. And again, we have another picture there that we showed a little bit earlier. If we're able to go back to that, we will, because we do have a couple of pictures here. So yes, this is a little bit of a wider view. You can see that it is that the left facade of that building, which you're seeing here a little bit closer up, where it did dump those bricks onto the street. Unfortunately, it looked like some of the vehicles there were impacted by that. This is also in the area just to the south of where we were seeing some damage earlier. We had a report damage of earlier, closer to, say, Hoosier. northwest of Linton, where we had a structural potentially collapse in this area as well. So, Sean, something we're keeping our eye on. Talk more about those temperatures dropping.
The reason I'm doing that is because at quarter till 5 p.m., Champaign was still near 70 degrees, okay? And their current reading is freezing. So 3 hours from near 70 to freezing. So that's kind of what we're staring down as this cold air just blasts through the state. We are just about out of the woods in terms of getting any additional severe thunderstorm warnings, and the bulk of our viewing area, the severe threat is going to be winding down here. And if you're just tuning in here at the top of the hour, we'll just show you how this thing has progressed. Again, just one impressive cold front, one impressive low pressure system. You probably have heard a lot about the bomb cyclone. These lows are not uncommon at all through the Great Lakes. Look what's upstream. It's 11 in Des Moines. Well, for kicks, why don't I? I got to work on a wind chill map there.
Let me see if I can pull one up while we're
Yeah,
talking.
well, I'm surprised I don't have one.
Because I can imagine the winds there across, especially the northern plains,
I thought we had a regional wind chill, and I'm not.
just howling.
I can tell you the wind chill in Champaign right now is 17. So, yeah, heck, the wind chill in Crawfordsville is 35 at this hour. So that's what's on the way here. 17 wind chill in Champaign, Illinois. And just hang with me, friends. We're just going to do one on the fly. I'm just going to do one on the fly.
You know what?
here.
Let me take over here
Yeah.
on my side.
Got it?
While you pull that up, because I was looking for the same thing and I was having the same issue that I was. So look, one of the things that I wanted to kind of reiterate here is what Sean was talking about with kind of backing the radar up another hour or two. This is what's moving through currently. I'm going to let this play out. There's still a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings that we're still tracking. Overall, though, I think we're looking pretty good. We haven't seen any areas along the front recently that have led to any rotation that have concerned us about any additional tornado warnings. If that's the case, in our viewing area, we'll pop over to on air real quick. We don't necessarily want to interrupt the Bears game too long. Want to make sure we update our viewers and also keep watching this until it exits the state. Once this exits, I say we'll probably be on the air here on WTHR Plus through about 9:30. Then we'll give our crew a little bit of a break. We'll get a little bit of a break. We'll come back at 11 o'clock on WTHR to update you on all the stories, find out what's happened in Linton, see if we can gather any more information, and really kind of hone in on this forecast. It's going to deal with a lot of the colder temperatures. This is the area that we're tracking as this moves through. And Colin, if you have something, feel free to chat with me here about what's going on, if there's anything you need to bring my way. I heard the mic pot up there for just a second. So notice the heavy rain in a couple of little areas that we saw a little bit of the kind of the kink in the radar. One of the things that I noticed, and again, I'm going to have to go back and see if I can find out that information on that Brown County damage that we saw, but I think that, Sean, may be the same area that we were talking about, this whole Linton, Greene County over to the southern part of Monroe County. It's the same little area. Watch as we get the tornado warning right about here, as we get that little kink in the line. That whole system continues to move east. We saw some reports of the damage there in Linton, and then we also had a report of some damage in the part of Brown County with some trees and power lines down blocking some of the roadways. Now, that's just what we've heard about so far. I have a feeling there's probably a lot more of that out there, honestly, than what we're reporting. We just haven't heard of it just yet, or we don't know of it just yet. Keep in mind, Brown County is also a fairly rural part of the county where there are a lot of trees that can fall across the roadway. That's why we may be hearing about that more so than some of the other locations. Again, we've got at least another maybe 20, 30 minutes or so before this is out of the viewing area, and then we are done. Really quickly, and while Sean's working on that wind chill map, I just want to get in real close to this area in Linton that we were talking about. I'm going to let this map play through, and then I'm going to switch over to our velocity products so you can see exactly what was happening when this system moved through Linton. So just a line of storms, but it did start to get a little bit of that S signature. And what we look for in that is when we get this little kink, you can get a little bit of rotation, and that may be what has happened here. It's hard to tell from the radar. That may have just been some gusty winds. I don't know how old that building was where we saw the facade ripped off, but that's certainly something that we'll be trying to figure out, especially that the National Weather Service will be trying to figure out, as just east of there is where the tornado warning was issued. Sean also made this important point. Even though there wasn't a tornado warning at the time in that specific area, there was a severe thunderstorm warning with tornado possible tagging. We knew that along this line there could be these brief little spin-ups, and there you see as it moved east, just a little bit of a notch in that radar. Let me switch over to the other product just to show you what it looked like according to the velocity. And I'll probably slow this down and stop it at times because it's really difficult to discern. And that's part of the problem of what the National Weather Service had to deal with. Watch as this backs up again. You'll see there's a little bit of a couplet right about there, maybe even just to the south of Linton, actually. In fact, I want to back this up manually just so I can see. We saw it earlier about 7:20 or so. Okay, so this is the area. Yeah, it's real tough to discern. There's a little bit of a brief spin up right there. So this is just to the south and west of Linton, and it's this area that we're tracking right here. So there's actually a couple of potential, maybe three, that we're tracking, these little notches, these little areas of quick spin ups along the line. Now, as we go forward about maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so, you can see that as it gets very close to Linton, there may be a little bit of a brief enhancement right about there. Maybe there's a little bit of circulation, but you could also imply the same thing here. As Sean mentioned, once you're this far out from the radar, you're not getting a clear view of what's happening at the surface. The radar beam is up in the atmosphere several thousand feet at this point, so we're not seeing this close to the surface. Fast forward a little bit longer, and this is where you start to see a little bit of organization of this cell. You're really going to notice this low-level jet, I think, get a little bit better organized. Yeah, let me show that. Actually, it's pretty textbook at that point. So what you're seeing here is starting to see the inflow into this cell. See this strong line of gusty winds? These winds are moving this way, and they're pretty strong, and they're going into this storm. There's pretty well-defined broad circulation here. Is that happening at the surface? Well, it remains to be seen. We don't know, but when the Weather Service saw this, just a scan or so later, as long as that continued, and once that circulation tightened up a little bit, watch the tornado warning pop up right there, especially as that started to tighten up. So we had kind of the indications. We may have just been at the mercy of a difficult location for the radar, but you can see that there were a couple of brighter spots that popped up here. The rotation was getting a little bit stronger. We were starting to see a pretty broad circulation tighten up a little bit more and become a little bit stronger as this moved to the east. But watch how quickly this falls apart. The tornado warning was, I believe, canceled early at this point because once this moved east, it kind of fizzled out, and then the tornado warning was allowed to be canceled. Now, having said that, that same cell pushed east into eventually right over Lake Monroe. It's where we were tracking it, right over Lake Monroe. There was a little concern here that maybe we'd have another notch. That same area moved into the southern part of Brown County. That's where we have also heard some reports of some damage. In the southern part of the county is where I'm looking. I'll have to go back and see if I can get that information of where that damage was in Brown County, because where I'm seeing the most concern is in the southern part. And then really it just becomes more of a linear situation with the front as it passed on by. And I'll switch back over to the other view, and you can see, well, it's just a line of storms that moved on by. Sean, how are we doing over there?
Oh, we're good, man. I'm just trying to do some calculations in my head. Sorry.
How's that going for you?
Well, just like every day, it's a struggle.
And one of the things I have a feeling Sean's probably calculating is how many degrees did we lose over what amount of time?
That's exactly what I was
figured
doing.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because this has been a scenario. Look, as meteorologists, we talk about these fronts coming through all the time. We say, the temperatures from one day it's going to feel like spring, and the next day it's going to feel like wintertime. That's not something that is unheard of. We talk about it all the time. What's unheard of is with this front, how quickly and how sharply the temperatures are dropping. You know, we don't use terms like flash freeze very often, but when you have this much rain that's fallen across the state, maybe as much as 1/4 of an inch of rain, maybe even a little more than that, maybe 1/2 an inch at times, especially with this back edge of some heavier rain behind it. And then you drop the temperatures down to freezing or below, especially once you get into the 20s and teens. Within 3, 4, 6 hours or so, that's where we really get into some territory where we don't see it very often. This is not something that as meteorologists we see that steep a decline in temperatures. I'll be curious to know what the maximum drop in temperature over time is reported in Indy. It's not something we have climatological records of a lot of, but I'm sure the National Weather Service has some numbers of how quickly the temperatures have dropped. And one of the things we're watching is behind this line. Very quickly, and when you're ready to take over, Sean, when you've got some maps for me, let me know, and I'll toss it back over to you. But just very quickly, I want to pull up the temperature map. See if I can do any better calculations on the air here.
It took Champaign, I think, 4 hours from mid 60s to freezing.
Wow. So 4 hours, they dropped 30 degrees, at least 35 maybe. And that's basically what I've been saying the last 4 days or so, that it started, I said over the course of 12 hours, we're going to see the temperatures go from the 60s to the 20s. And then as we got a little closer to the event, I said, okay, over 6 hours, we're going to see the temperatures drop from the 60s to the 20s. I think yesterday I said over the course of about 4 or 5 hours, we could go from the 60s to the 20s. I think our last observation in the 60s was as of maybe 7 o'clock. Will we make it down into the 20s by midnight? I think it's certainly possible. I mean, look, if Champaign is already at 32, give us another 3 hours and our temperatures could certainly be down to freezing, maybe even into the 20s. Meanwhile, Cincinnati is still holding on to near 70 degrees and it's freezing in Champaign. And this is what's going to really be our story for the next 24 hours, is just the amount of cold that's come in, the winds that go along with that, and the wind chill. And Sean, you were also talking about wind chill earlier and some of those areas that we were watching to our north and west.
I did get the map ready.
Some of the temperatures there were into the approaching single digits, but the winds are so strong. So let's talk about where we are with temperatures for some of our friends to the west are dealing with much more uncomfortable conditions.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to show this lapse because I think it kind of puts everything into perspective with this particular cell. We're going back 6 hours, a little bit after 3 o'clock. Kind of see that cold coming in. And I tell you, sometimes the modeling too doesn't do great with what we call shallow cold air. It's 11 currently in Des Moines, where the wind chill is a toasty 11 below. Now, the reason there isn't a reading for Indianapolis because we haven't really technically met that threshold just yet.
For having a wind chill. We don't have a wind chill because we're still in the 50s.
Yep. So there's, as we get a little bit closer, Terre Haute's wind chill's 25, Paris, Illinois is 24, Champaign.
Boy, that map is incredible.
It's incredible. It is. I mean, when you consider they are almost at 70, so even in about 4 hours, they went from near 70. So their wind chill makes it feel 50 degrees colder in 4 hours. That's what we have on the way.
That's moving our way. And look, we were 60s. We're going to be going from 60s to feels like temperatures likely into the teens.
It'll feel about 70 degrees colder tomorrow morning. And look, we haven't been that cold lately. That's the other thing. It's not just, oh, hey, we warmed up one day. No, we've had one heck of a stretch run here. And then in terms of the moisture, so dew points, not surprisingly, this is key to the moisture on the roadways too, by the way. The lower these numbers go, the drier the air is. And so again, it is a very fine line in regards to tomorrow morning and what shape the roads are in. How much and how quickly can this drier air evaporate what's on the roadways? And it's quite a bit that's on the roadways. You can see this thing is moving. It's quick. It is quick.
So let's do this. Let me do a little quick reset. We'll go through the forecast, then we'll go back to Sean to check in with any of the updates as the line is pretty much exiting. Then we will take you back to our WTHR Plus programming, and you can join us back again at 11 o'clock. So let me very quickly just go through where we are currently with our forecast. Storms are exiting. The tornado watch is starting to be trimmed back. There's just a single line of counties here in the eastern part of the state. As that line passes, those will also be allowed to expire or will be removed from the tornado watch. There's the map that Sean was showing you earlier, from nearly 70 in Cincinnati to now down to freezing in Champaign. What an incredible front that's moving through. Has brought us some severe weather as it moved on by. There was a 46-mile-per-hour wind gust in Columbus. We have had also other reports of as much as 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We showed you this a little bit wider earlier, but this is the colder air that is being pushed into the area. In order to get the temperatures from the 70s down into the teens, you've got to move it. So you've got to push it, and that's the winds. The winds are going to be strong tonight. Even after the line moves through, they're going to be strong into tomorrow. That's going to also make it feel so much colder. So there's the radar wrapping up when it comes to those severe thunderstorm warnings. Wind advisories will be in place until 5 p.m. tomorrow. They may have actually extended that a little bit since the last time I checked. Future Track will show you this area, this batch of showers moving out of here. The one thing I'm curious about is how much of that next batch of snow does Future Track 13 try to bring in here. I don't think it's modeling it as well, so we could see some snow showers overnight, even into early morning tomorrow, enough that we could see as much as maybe a half an inch of accumulation in a couple of isolated spots, maybe even more. But really the big story is going to be the cold. Current wind gusts, there's that 46-mile-per-hour wind gust in Columbus, a little bit closer to the metro. Most of the wind gusts are now into the 20 to 30, maybe almost 40-mile-per-hour range. Compare that to the maximum that we saw earlier in the day today. The 52 sticks out at the airport as an official observation, but there were observations that were as high as 60 to 64 miles per hour from some of the sensors, the unofficial sensors that we've seen farther to the west. This was the high temperature today, if you can believe that, 67 degrees. It did break the old record of 65 earlier in the that we saw that was in place earlier today. Now that we've broken it, we're going to go from 67 to 26. Those are the high temperatures, and overnight lows are going to be into the teens. So let's walk you through Future Track when it comes to temperatures, because this is the real story. 20s and teens overnight. By tomorrow at 8 a.m., I think we're going to be into the mid to upper teens, only rebounding into the 20s by the afternoon, and then the temperatures go back into the teens. This particular Future Track model gets us down closer to, say, 10. We'll have to see if that's the case, but if nothing else, it's going to be cold and it's going to feel cold. Here's the feels like temperatures. Watch this. By midnight, it's going to feel like it's into the teens already and will likely feel like zero by early morning. So tomorrow when the sun comes up, be very careful, because with feels like temperatures near zero, that alone is dangerous enough. But keep in mind, you've had a lot of rain overnight. We may have some issues with the flash freeze. Things may be frozen. Your steps may be frozen. You may also have issues on bridges and overpasses. There hasn't been an ability to treat anything because of the rain that's come through and then how quickly the temperatures have dropped. So it's going to be cold for a while, and the temperatures may also be down cold enough that some of the salt treatment isn't as effective. Feels like temperatures are probably going to hold near zero through Tuesday morning before we finally see a little bit of relief, and it's not much. It just doesn't feel quite as cold by Tuesday afternoon. Here's the 7-day forecast. Teens for a couple of nights here. Yes, it was 67 earlier in the day today. We'll do 50 degrees colder than that by tomorrow morning, 26 for our daytime high on Monday. A few flurries could be possible, and expect 40 to 45 mile per hour gusts through the entire day on Monday. Tuesday, a little bit of improvement here, but not by much. We see the temperature gain a couple degrees for daytime highs, but the overnight low may be a little bit colder. And the last day of 2025, we may be able to see the temperatures get above freezing. We are expecting dry conditions into the new year. So if you have plans to celebrate, it may be a little bit milder, but still expecting a low of 21 into early Thursday morning. Few flurries for the first day of the new year. Friday, we expect the temperatures to stay below freezing, but just barely. And by Saturday and Sunday, perhaps a little bit of milder weather. The average high this time of year is 37 degrees.
Say again?
37 degrees.
What was our high today?
67
Yeah,
degrees.
I just looked up 3 days This is now the third day on record in Indianapolis. Our records go back to 1871, where we've had a high temperature of 67 or greater on or after the 28th. So essentially the last 4 days of the month. The last time it happened was 1951, and the other time it happened was in 1875. Both of those were on New Year's Eve, and both of those were 68 degrees.
Wow.
So when we use the word rare air, that's exactly what we're talking about. So 40 degrees above the average high for this date. It was not only a record warm day, it was a record humid day. We've never had at least on record, a dew point this high, this late in the season. So, and to go where we were to where we're going tomorrow, something had to give in the atmosphere, and it's what took place this evening. So we have had some pockets of wind damage. Our desk will continue to monitor that, but this thing is moving right on schedule, moved through the metro on schedule, arrived Western Indiana on schedule, and it's going to depart right on time here, Rob. We like when it doesn't always work out that well, but in this particular case, it did. And for our viewing area, at least, the severe threat, with the exception of our very far eastern counties, is just about done, my friend.
So we are essentially going to wrap this up here. We'll come back to the radar very quickly at the wall and just show you. We'll watch this line. If you are anywhere east of this line, the few of you that are, we're going to continue to monitor it. Of course, if there's any type of tornadic development, we will make sure that we break in, update you of what's going to be happening with this line. But for the vast majority of central Indiana, the severe threat has ended. Now we watch the flash freeze threat that's going to happen overnight through tomorrow. You can keep it tuned right here to WTHR Plus, or you can also tune in at 11 o'clock on WTHR. We'll bring you the latest on what's happened with today's news. I'll also have a fresh forecast for you if we need to make any tweaks to that forecast for overnight temperatures into tomorrow and what you can expect as we head into next week and the end of the year, which does look to be bitterly cold. We're going to send you back to WTHR Plus programming. I'm meteorologist Robb Ellis for meteorologist Sean Ash, as well as Jenny Runovich, who's been helping us out this evening. We thank you so much for watching. Please be safe in the morning. Make sure you tune into Sunrise in the morning to check on those road conditions, because we have a feeling that freezing road conditions could be a big problem. Have a safe night.